I can for certain tell you that. I'm gonna blow your mind with something else, G Mac, because you just mentioned athletic linebackers, and it's kind of a conversation you and I have had before. Um, Jihad Campbell, heavier or lighter this year?
Don't tell me heavier. There's no way.
About 15 pounds heavier.
There's no way.
I did not believe him either. Like literally didn't believe him. I was like, I don't believe you. He said, no. He said, focus in the off season was trying to put on more lean mass. He said, I feel like I'm faster this year. Feel like I'm, you know, feel like I'm a little bit more loose. He said, but yeah, he said I played at about 230 to 28 last year, and he said I'm right at 240 242 this year.
Wow. Everyone should wear number 11. That's what should happen. Everyone should just change their number to matching digits, mirrored numbers, and just look way leaner. That's the way to do it, I think.
Lawson's heavier also.
That I'm not super surprised. He looks heavier.
I think they both look leaner and lighter, but it's I mean, I was.
They both
are
playing faster. I know that.
Yeah, because that's like the first conversation Greg and I had after week one, watching Alabama's defense. It's like, man, those linebackers look faster. Like they look like they leaned up a little bit. And you know about some of the body transformations, whether you go back to Evan Neal or Reuben Foster, just different guys that sort of took that offseason and said, I'm going to change physically how I am so I can operate in a little bit of a different way. And not so much. I couldn't believe it. And it was cool talking to him, though. And kind of cool being over there yesterday. Got to visit with Kalen a little bit. Man, he's just – I'll just reiterate to folks who may not know or just may not believe it, but literally the nicest human you'll ever meet. Like just the absolute salt of the earth, best human being you'll ever meet. Just that's all I can say about it, really. Just love talking some football with him yesterday, being able to hang out. And I don't know, you haven't been over there yet, G-Mac, but it's different, man. It really is. Like I walked out of there, my ears weren't ringing after a Thursday practice yesterday. So that first
I have not been over there during this.
difference.
No, I have not been over there during the fall. I was obviously did the spring game, was over there in the spring, went over a couple times, but it's different for sure. No doubt about it, it's different. But I think the guys like it for sure as well. I think the guys enjoy it. I think they're having fun, and I think they played really loose last week, obviously, especially in the first 2.5 quarters.
No, and kind of going back and really diving into it. We got a lot of fans earlier in the week. Whatever happened in the second half, can't let that happen. And coach took his foot off the gas. All this, it's I watch everything on Sunday, and sometimes I'll go back and watch it a few more times. But when I have that team, I'm a little more dialed into it. I'll watch a little bit more, and I'll watch a little bit more specifically. And a lot of it was just simple execution. I mean, a lot of it was
a couple bad reads in the run game. I did not, and look, we can give him his flowers because there were a lot of great plays in the game. I did not think that. I thought Jalen tried to do too much in the second half. There were a couple jet sweeps he could have handed. There were a couple zone reads that he could have handed. I think he might have tried to do a little too much in the second half, and it was simple execution. I did think the passing game, the windows got a little tighter. I thought they kind of guessed right. Georgia did on a couple coverages, but I agree. I mean, I think in the run game especially, there were some really bad decisions made, and that's what led to a less than stellar second half performance. But hey, that's going to happen. I mean, you're going to have some ebbs and flows, and Georgia's going to win a few. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. They're just too talented not to. Luckily for you, you were able to create a huge lead, but I did not think Jalen made great decisions in the second half. Just first half could not have played better. I mean, literally could not have played better. I thought some of the decision making in the second half was less than ideal.
Yeah, it's kind of been interesting to go back and take a look at. I think you had a couple issues on a few routes that could have cleared some things up, made throws a little bit easier. You don't block back on a crack on a toss, and that could have given you a lot more space on the perimeter. Just easy stuff. And so for folks that might be worried about that, concerned about that, I would just say it's stuff that can easily be repaired. Obviously, they got to go out and do it. You can't continue to let it happen. But not things where the team was doing things in the first half that maybe can't be replicated or done again. I would say just kind of some silly mistakes in the second half and can be cleaned up, no doubt about it. So your game that you've been kind of taking a closer look at that Auburn offense. What are the pieces of it that you've seen that you feel like can be built upon a little bit more? How much needs to be new or different? How much, I guess, not new as far as, hey, we installed, a whole new part of our run game, or we installed 3 new protections, but from the standpoint of alterations, attachments, things that have been added that are just a little bit different that can keep Georgia off balance. How much is there, do you think, for that to actually take place this week for Hugh Freeze and his offense?
Well, I think that there's quite a bit that could be done against this Georgia defense that would actually play very well into Auburn's hands. I'm not going to sit there and go as far as to say that they have an advantage, right? You and I are on the same page. They don't have an advantage, do you think?
No.
Okay. But I do think there are things that Auburn does well that could really help them in this game. For example, one, I think the RPO game is something that would give Georgia some fits. Georgia in this game probably not going to play a lot of man. Why? Because Peyton Thorne had 92 yards rushing last year in this game because they played man. So Peyton Thorne can keep you honest with his legs. So you're probably going to get a decent amount of zone by Georgia's standards. I think that will allow you to potentially win some one-on-ones. You've now proven to have a guy that can win those one-on-ones, and you have a running back that breaks a lot of tackles. Georgia last week was as bad in pursuit and as bad far as angles and as bad at tackling as I've ever seen from Georgia. Maybe that's a one-game sample size, and maybe that's who they are, but it was bad. And I think Auburn can take advantage of some of those things. I think there's a lot in the run game that's there to like. I really do. I think the run game's going to be fine. Warren Brinson being healthy is a little more challenging. Michael Williams being healthy is challenging. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins has played a ton of snaps this year. He'll go beyond his career high in snaps in about the middle of the second quarter. So I think that there's things that you can feel pretty good about with this Auburn attack, but they got to be prepared to win some one-on-ones, which I think they can. I really do. I think they can. They just need to be more methodical about not having the huge mistake that can end a drive. I'm talking about an interception. I'm talking about a big sack or getting behind the sticks, because that's where Georgia kills you.
Absolutely. All right. If you're looking to get a better night's sleep, you want to lose a little bit of weight, your CBD store can help. They have products that can help you get a good night's rest. They also have products that can help you with arthritis, anxiety, you or your pet. If you've got a pet in your household that's struggling to get around a little bit, your CBD store has products, treats for their pet that can help them move a little bit easier. They've helped 2 of my pets in my house do that. They can do the same for you. Anxiety for you or your pet. If they get a little anxious when the storms come in, they have products that are going to help with that also. Skincare, they can help with that for your pets. A lot of different treats and snacks that they have that can really make your pet's life a little bit easier, a little bit better, specifically if they're getting older around the house. Stop by your CBD store and just see what they can do for you or your pet in your house. The largest brick and mortar CBD retailer in the world, first company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. Stamp seals are going to be on those products. So go check them out today. 4 locations: Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleveland, Trustful just off 459, and now downtown in 5 Points. Your CBD store where good health hits home. All right, when we come back, a couple games from last night, need to discuss those, and we'll continue to roll into this weekend slate of college football. Your feedback as well, 800-239-9569. If you want to be a part of the show, you can get in there, 800-239-WJOX. Text into the show, 205-834-9450. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. We'll keep discussing games coming up this weekend right after this on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning.
Welcome back, McElroy Kublik in the morning. Jocks 94.5, 8:18 a.m. Eastern time here in Athens, Georgia. Cole currently, I believe, I don't know if he's in Birmingham or if he's in Nashville. I know he is either en route to Nashville today.
I'm in Nashville.
Or you're there already? You're in the Music City?
Got in about midnight last night.
Yeah, we did the same. Dad and I drove. I got my parents in town. It's my 3-year-old's birthday, 2-year-old turning 3 tomorrow. So family's in town. May is getting baptized on Sunday. We just have a lot of action. So Dad and I decided to drive over yesterday after soccer practice. It was not a terrible drive, but still from Birmingham to Athens, not an easy drive as well. Luckily for me, I'm in a GMC Sierra, thanks to my friends at Bill Smith Buick GMC. Went up there. I bought a Sierra from them a couple years back. Really enjoyed my experience dealing with Andy Cole and Jonathan Yeager. Got it for an incredible deal, a deal that you just won't find anywhere else. People are like, oh, they give you a truck. I'm like, no, I bought it. Promise you, bought it free and clear, and then went and bought another one because I had such a great experience with Bill Smith. I went with Bill Smith because they are the GMC Dealer of the Year, the national champion, and they're the only group that I would shop with because I don't want to spend additional money that I don't have to spend. That's because Bill Smith Buick is going to beat any deal that you'll find anywhere else, and they'll probably exceed any deal that you find elsewhere. So go and see them off I-65, exit 310, Highway 31 in Coleman, or you can shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, last night, Troy goes down to Texas State, 38-17. Troy goes 1-5, 0-2 in the Sun Belt. Jalen McLeod, 252 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns for Texas State last night. Also ran for 72 yards and a touchdown. Troy couldn't get the run game going, 33 carries, 63 yards. Just not enough really there to keep up with what Jalen McLeod and company were doing offensively. Couple fumbles in that game for Troy. That kind of helped the cause for the Bobcats to be able to get that W. And Troy kind of struggling here early in the season. Not great for the Trojans at home last night. Sam Houston State 5-1. They blast UTEP. UTEP 0-5, 41-21 last night. Just a pretty strong performance start to finish from Sam Houston State as they get the win. Coming up tonight, we got Jacksonville State in action tonight. They're at Kennesaw State, who's winless. They're 0-4 on the season. 6 o'clock, CBS Sports Network. 6:30 tonight on ESPN, Houston TCU. Houston is a weird 1-4, man, because they've got some guys. I mean, quarterback has ability to make big plays. You got a couple receivers that can play defensively, a couple D linemen that are solid. But just hadn't been able to put everything together. They're at TCU, 6:30 on ESPN, looking to get win number 2. Michigan State at Oregon, Greg, tonight, 8 o'clock on Fox. Oregon 4-0, Michigan State 3-2. Michigan State, we kind of asked the question last week if they could be a little bit more of a headache than people thought. Can they be that to Oregon tonight?
I don't know if they have the horses. Here's the problem with Michigan State. They don't have depth in the secondary. They turn the ball over a lot. Their quarterback has 8 picks. You think you're in a tough spot? At Auburn, try having 8 picks. And he didn't throw one last week. And try not being very good on the offensive line. Those 3 things, not a great recipe to pull in the upset. But I would say this. Jonathan Smith is extremely familiar with this program. Jonathan Smith was formerly the head coach at Oregon State. He's played Oregon as an underdog 6 times. He's won outright twice. He's been super competitive 4 quarters 2 other times, and 2 times he got blasted. So if there's one coach in America that knows how to play in Eugene with an underdog, it's Jonathan Smith. So I do think that the familiarity will help them stay around for at least a half, but the only way this thing goes 4 quarters is if Oregon is looking ahead next week to the Ohio State game.
Also tonight, 8 o'clock, FS1, Syracuse 3-1 with Kyle McCord having a really strong year. They're at UNLV, number 25 team in the nation, 4-0. We all know the situation with what's taken place with UNLV this year. And listen, it kind of worked itself out last week. We didn't spend a ton of time on that game, GMAC, but 59-14 over Fresno State. And there was a lot of question about quarterback. Malik Williams, 13-16, 182, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Ran for 119 yards and another touchdown. Ricky White had 10 catches, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. Feels like the Rebs going to be okay with Sluka heading on to
How?
NIL Disneyland. Rebs going to find a way to make it. They'll survive.
Well, Haj Malik Willis did a decent job last week filling in. I don't know if it's sustainable, but a decent job for sure. The one I like tonight is Syracuse. I think Syracuse gets this one. Syracuse has been playing really well. And while they did lose to Stanford, that was almost in large part due to the turnovers forced and the fact that Stanford has one receiver that can take the game over. I think UNLV is solid. I like their offense. I think Marion's a good offensive mind. I think Jalen Catalon, by the way, is there for UNLV, formerly of Texas, formerly of Arkansas. He now leads the FBS with 4 interceptions, so he's going to be a ball hawk in the secondary. But I think this offense for the Orange is really good. They got 3 receivers that are a handful and a quarterback that's accurate and can actually run it a little as well. So I just think it's a bad matchup for UNLV. There's just too many weapons there for Syracuse, and if you look at UNLV's win against against Kansas, Kansas gave that game to them. So I think UNLV gets beat tonight on their home field.
Oh man, here he goes, ruining the dream season for the Rebs. Throwing that out there, folks going to be disappointed in you, Craig, for going that direction.
I'm sorry that for all the diehard UNLV fans out there, both of you, I'm sorry that it's not going to work out tonight. I like the Orange to take care of business on the road.
It's pretty wild how well Kyle McCord's playing this year, and just you're talking about putting a team together in a hurry, and all of a sudden it's just we know that the talent level was raised, but man, to be able to kind of piece this thing together in one off season and to kind of get it going where it is, it's been pretty remarkable to see, specifically with McCord, who Ohio State just allowed to walk. And I understand that, not every quarterback that just because he's starting somewhere means he's the best thing ever. But 64%, 1,459 yards, 14 touchdowns, 5 picks for McCord this year. That's in 4 games for the Orange. He's been super solid. Now,
solid.
4 of those 5 picks have come in his last 2 games, 2 against Holy Cross. So you want that to sort of, find a way to mitigate itself. But he's gone for 300 in every game this year. He's gone for over 330 in every game this year, actually. So it's kind of cool to see that a guy that somebody else's trash has been Syracuse's treasure, so to speak.
Well, I would say this too. Look, I know quarterback gets blamed for a lot. He was kind of the scapegoat last year, and you watched him. I mean, do you think Kyle McCord was Ohio State's biggest problem last year?
No.
Do you think the upgrade with Will Howard is that significant over Kyle McCord? The answer is absolutely not. And I know that they were considering Dylan Gabriel. I know that they were considering other guys. But I hate to break it to you. Kyle McCord was not your problem. Let me tell you what your problem was. Your offensive line. And I also think that there was, and I love Ryan Day. I think Ryan Day is incredible. I think he's so underrated, especially by his own fan base. But I do think for him, there was a slight blind spot as it came to the run game. He's a quarterback. He sees it through the lens of the quarterback. He identifies weaknesses in coverage. And I think bringing somebody in that is an expert, I think the foremost expert in scheming up runs in Chip Kelly was the biggest benefit and the biggest addition to Ohio State this year. The personnel was great. Quinshon Judkins great. Will Howard great. J.J. Smith at receiver great. Caleb Downs great. The biggest addition this offseason was Chip Kelly because he now fills a void that existed there for a while in toughness and in creating an edge along the line of scrimmage offensively. So I'm really optimistic about Ohio State this year, almost in large part due to what Chip Kelly's providing balance with that offense.
I would agree with you. It's been cool to see, especially I want to know if you are where I am on Ohio State right now. We haven't spent a lot of time on Ohio State. We haven't really talked about them, and there's a couple different reasons that I watch that team every week. I mean, being maybe the best team, one of the best teams in college football, I feel like I need to see them. I'm really interested in Chip's offense. It's always one that I want to watch on a pretty much weekly basis anyway. So I just want to spend a little time on the Buckeyes when we come back. It's not something we've done really on this show much this season. We'll do that on the other side. Before we get to that, uh, tell us about the Pants Store, GMAC, and what folks can find there.
The Pants Store is awesome. I've had such a great experience every time I've gone and shopped at the Pants Store. These guys, they always take great care of you. They have great brands. That's what I love so much. I go and get some Auburn polos and Bama polos if I were y'all, because while we don't get to enjoy game day, y'all do. And you need to get outfitted with the best possible apparel that you can be outfitted with when you are trying to go and support your team in, whether it's Jordan Hare or Bryant Denny, Pants Store has you covered. Like I said, best brands like Cutter and Buck, Horn Legend, Antigua, Gentile. Nobody does game day apparel quite like the Pants Store. And ladies, they have stuff for you as well. Hoka New Balance Western boots. Need a romper or a perfect dress? Pants Store has you covered. They also have those clear purses so you can get through security as quickly as possible. So go and know that free alterations to gift wrap is available. So zip on down to the Pants Store for all your game day needs.
All right, when we come back, we will take a little bit of a look at the Buckeyes, what's coming up this weekend, and just kind of our thoughts of that team up until this point in the season next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. You can listen online, jocksfm.com. The app is in your app store, iPhone, Android. Always download that for free. Listen anywhere you might be heading. Appreciate the folks listening in Huntsville on Talk Radio 730, 103.9 The Also Sports Radio 740. down there in Montgomery. All right, so I want to talk a little bit of Ohio State. They haven't had the matchup, I think, to grab our attention, or really, I mean, they definitely haven't had a marquee matchup that's been worthy of a ton of conversation. Sitting at number 3 in the nation, they get Iowa at home this weekend. That game will be 2:30 tomorrow on CBS. Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, at Michigan State, all essentially blowouts. The Michigan State game not as bad as some of the others. But when you've watched this team, Greg, what are your thoughts so far on the Buckeyes when we compare them to Bama, Texas, Georgia, some of those other teams, Miami, that are towards the top of the college football world right now?
I love Ohio State. I just am not sure about them yet, because the areas in which I would have concerns about Ohio State, and while people can turn a blind eye and watch their offensive line and think, oh, they are legit, the holes in this group are along the offensive and defensive lines. And you can say, well, the defensive line's not been a hole. I think the defensive line in theory is better than the defensive line in reality. Like, you look at the star power that they have up there, but they don't have any guy up front along the defensive line that's going to flat out take over the game and that you trust. Like, you can say JT Tuimoloau, yeah, he did it once, ever, in how many years of being a starting quarterback. Like, yeah, starting defensive end. He took over the game against Penn State 2 or 3 years ago. That's great. Since then, what has he done? Doesn't mean he's not a good player. Just means I don't think he is Joey Bosa 2.0 or Nick Bosa. So that's my thing about Ohio State. The teams that they've played so far are not capable of exposing them in the areas that I want to see advancement in. And I really don't know when that game's going to come. Is it going to be Oregon? Is Oregon a team that can really challenge them along the offensive and defensive lines? I really don't know, because I'm not sold on Oregon's defensive line.
Yeah.
So it might be a couple weeks. I mean, it might not even be till Michigan, frankly, until I feel like that offensive line is going to be legitimately challenged. Maybe Penn State. I take that back. Penn State will challenge them there for sure. But I don't know about you. Like, do you think the offensive line's better?
I do think it's a little bit better, yeah. And it could be, I don't know this for certain, but it could be kind of the direction of the offense and what the offense kind of is. The thing that I like about Ohio State is I feel like they're growing week to week. I feel like Chip's able to put a little bit more in. I feel like Walker Howard's getting a little bit more comfortable with what he's being asked to do and how he's just sort of operating the offense. And let's be honest, when you have those weapons and you have the creativity in that run game, Will Howard, excuse me, and you have the creativity in that run game, you don't have to – he's not going to have to be a guy that completes 28, 32 passes a game to be super successful. And the level of difficulty might not be that much either. So I think Steph's actually playing really good football for him. I think he's been a big help. I don't think they're a group of maulers, but I do think that – and I'm not saying that he's Cade Stover or anything, but I do think G. Scott's having a good year also at tight end. 88. I think when he's in the game, he gives them a little extra something, and he can be a little bit more physical and help them be a little bit of a different football team. So I really like them. I understand that the tests have not been anywhere near what a couple of other teams have had this year. Texas going to Michigan, Alabama and Georgia playing, Miami winning at the Swamp. But I'm interested to see not only this weekend, because this one will be a little bit different. You imagine the possessions will be almost cut in half. And then you're at Oregon. Nebraska can maybe be a little bit of a challenge. Nebraska's defense has been pretty stingy against the run this year. Penn State could be a little bit of a challenge after that on the road. So I think they've got some challenges coming, but haven't seen it just yet. I was interested just kind of what you thought about them, because we haven't spent a ton of time talking about what that team is, and it's fine. It's easy to forget about them based on who they've played, because there's not a whole lot to brag about as far as either going to a difficult venue or playing against a difficult team or being challenged the way that some of these other teams have been.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I just feel like when I evaluate Ohio State, they are still at this point, I'm still in wait and see mode, because I look at the teams they played in the non-con. They're very human, right? There's not a whole lot to like about what they've played in the non-con. No disrespect to Marshall. I'm just not going to learn a lot there. What about Michigan State? I think Michigan State has some major vulnerabilities in the back end defensively. As a result, they beat them up pretty good through the year. So now I look at kind of where they're at against a team like Iowa. I don't think Iowa's very good. So we'll see. I'm not there yet. Like Ohio State's expectation level is to not win the Big Ten. That's they should be able to do that. But it's to win a national championship. So I have to compare them against other national championship contenders. And right now, I would not take them. Based on what I know, if you told me, Greg, your life depends on picking Ohio State to win the national championship, I would not feel super comfortable with that. I'd feel a lot better about Texas because I've seen Texas's O-line hold up. I would feel better about Alabama because I think athleticism that Alabama has can mitigate issues that might occur along the front. So it's not that I think Ohio State's bad. It's just I don't know yet, and we'll see.
Absolutely. All right, so a little conversation there on the Buckeyes. Back into you don't think there's an issue with Iowa this weekend though? You think
God, I hope not. Because then our whole conversation that we just had for the last 9 minutes is moot. Because if you struggle with Iowa, you ain't winning the Natty. Ain't happening.
right?
Iowa is better offensively. KJ Johnson's legit. I mean, he's really good. Their running back, excellent. I don't think their line's great either, by the way. But I also think this is a game that if there's one way for Iowa to win this game, and it's shrinking possessions, creating 2+ turnovers, and having a big play in special teams. Other than that, I just can't see it being competitive for 4 quarters.
Right. All right, so a little conversation there on the Buckeyes. We'll get to different conversation when we come back on the other side about our top 3 of the day. What's that going to look like? What could it be heading into the weekend? I mean, safe guess would be top 3 upset alerts since it's been like that every other week this year. But we'll have a conversation about maybe what that is and what that's going to look like. Quickly tell you that, football season's continuing here. You need to rely on that train in your home. HVAC system, one of your largest investments. Time of year constantly being pushed to the extreme. You can trust a Train home comfort system to give you reliability and peace of mind day in, day out for years to come. Visit Train.com to find a comfort specialist near you. And remember, it's hard to stop a train. All right, we'll be back with our top 3 next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. We get to our top three each and every day, even on Fridays heading into football weekends. Never know what it's going to be. Dynamic top three yesterday with top three female songs or songs by female artists all time.
Appreciate it.
Which was very thought-provoking.
Absolutely.
And generated great conversation. Damien, what's on tap for our top three today?
Oh, well, y'all know October 4th. It is it's National Cinnamon Roll Day, guys.
I'm not against it. Nobody knew that, but I'm not sure anybody cares either. If you want one, you'll just get one. But yeah.
Top three desserts for breakfast?
Gregory, it's your day as well, man. National Golf Lovers Day.
Ooh, we're back.
You going to try to hit the links while you're in Athens?
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe Hugh and I will go play.
Oh.
Wow.
We go dial it up. That'd be fun. Maybe we do our coaches meeting on the 18th tee.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. But no, y'all know what we do. It's National, believe it or not, it's actually National Body Language Day. Don't know.
I don't even know how you, like, what that is.
It's great for radio.
No, I seriously I didn't know that was a day.
Be honest, when you said National Body Language Day, you started the buh and you really didn't know where you're going there because there's so many options.
It really was. Because it's also because this is how I know this website that I use is it's fake. It can't be real because National Taco Day is today, but that was actually Tuesday. I know for a fact that was Tuesday.
So it's fake or just wrong?
Both.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
No, we're gonna do upset alerts, of course. Top three teams on upset alert this weekend.
Of course. Has to be.
Wants to end the weekend on a win, I guess.
Man, I actually didn't go, and I thought when I was doing some prep after I got here last night, I was like, I should write down my top three upsets. I'm like, surely he won't ask that again this week.
It's a recurring theme. You know you're going to get at least one day a week.
Well, then I would like you to lead us off since I have not written mine down.
All right, I've got West Virginia on upset. Well, I say Oklahoma State on upset alert against West Virginia because Oklahoma State had a lackadaisical effort last week against Kansas State that beat down West Virginia, probably looking like, hey, we can get them on the road. I also have Tennessee on upset alert, believe it or not, because I do think as long as Arkansas doesn't turn the ball over, they at least have a chance. And I think they're talented enough that, hey, if it comes into a fist fight, Arkansas will welcome it. And I have Florida as well. Well, UCF against Florida. Because I do think the fact that they are at home, Billy Napier, after a bye week, pick this thing on up. UCF, after the performance they had against Colorado. I know KJ Jefferson has won in the swamp before, but he ain't done it with UCF. And I think that would be the number one on upset alert.
I feel like there's a lot of games that could go against the spread. For the top three, I'm going to give you Greg already called it. It's UNLV -6.5 with Syracuse at home this week. Obviously, Kyle McCord playing good football. Now there's tape of Hajj Malik Williams as your quarterback. We'll see how that goes. Texas A&M's a 2.5-point favorite. I'll take Missouri to win the game when we pick games later. So I feel like that would be one that would qualify for upset alert for me. And Washington at home welcoming Michigan, 6:30 on NBC and Peacock. They're a 1.5-point favorite against the Wolverines, and if Washington can make them score quickly and have to score to keep up, it's a problem. But if Michigan gets that game going their way and it can be their style of fight, I don't think Washington can match up. So I think that would be one where Michigan has a good chance to potentially go pull the upset.
All right. First of all, Florida's a dog against UCF, so I'll take Florida.
In that game.
Yeah, I'll take Florida for sure. That one's I feel like pretty obvious. I think there's a lot of trendy dogs this weekend, so you got to kind of sift through the trash. Like Cal, super trendy dog. You can have him. I'll take Miami. I look at Michigan, kind of a trendy dog. I can't really see that one. I don't get it. That one doesn't make sense to me, so it's a stay away. 100%.
Does it make sense that they're an underdog, you mean?
Yeah, I just don't know how. I don't know how you can justify Michigan not being favored in that game. I just don't get it. SMU's a trendy dog. You can have it. I'll take Louisville. SMU's gotten by with the hair of their chinny chin chin because of turnover situation. So out there. My 3 that I like this week, Texas Tech over Arizona. That's in Tucson. Texas Tech runs the ball really well. Arizona doesn't stop the run. Not a good recipe. Do the Rubik's Cubic on that. All right, so I will take Texas Tech.
Told you.
The other one, I already told you that Syracuse over UNLV. Feel good about that one. And then one that not a lot of people are probably going to have, I'll give you North Carolina over Pitt.
Ooh.
Pitt's undefeated. They're at North Carolina.
I was looking at that one.
I don't think North Carolina's very good at all, but I think Pitt's gotten by in pretty remarkable fashion with 2 double-digit fourth-quarter comebacks against teams that really aren't very good. So Pitt might be undefeated, but they're not very good. I'll give you a bonus. I like Nebraska to go down at the hands of Rutgers. I think Rutgers will hang in there and make that one interesting as well.
Okay.
Didn't the Rubiks take Rutgers?
They did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those guys are smart, man. those computers, those things, but they know what they're doing.
Do we dare
John?
put Indiana on upset alert?
That's the one. That's probably my number one. Look, Northwestern's not great.
Northwestern stinks.
But every single year, some team goes into Northwestern that's not Michigan or Ohio State and FAFO. Well, more so, they just
FA.
sleep off and find out like, oh, wait, we can sleepwalk in this game. And then they realize, oh, they can't. You're going into a stadium that will be like Vanderbilt, except it's not under construction. It's just, like 40 people there. But Northwestern has some kind of magic in there that once a year, some team comes to them and finds a loss. So Indiana needs to be on upset alert this week, especially being a 14-point favorite. Yeah, that's one. Obviously, UNLV needs to be. I think everyone else is on page with that as well. One we're not thinking about, but we probably should, even though they've fallen off the face of the earth. Clemson needs to be on upset alerts against Florida State.
What?
Come on.
What?
New quarterback. Clemson riding high off of not really being tested, and Florida State season on the brink, but hey, we're getting rid of DJU, which probably was the secret sauce of their failure. I'm not saying Florida State wins, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 10-point game or a single score game. One, I guess I'll technically throw in, I guess Duke needs to be on upset alert. I mean, technically Georgia Tech is favored by 8.5, so Duke 5-0 going to I guess Tech needs to be on upset alert. The other one I put up there, Louisville on upset alert against SMU. I do think Louisville wins the game, but SMU has shown that they've got something, not just because they put it on Florida State. I mean, they've shown that they can put up points, and Louisville could be licking their wounds after the Notre Dame game last week and not take this one seriously.
All right, there you go. Damian, your top 3.
I'm here for it. But I agree with you 100% on Missouri. I think Missouri straight up just beats Texas A&M. If Missouri is a top 10 team, they have to go out there and put up a great performance against A&M. Like I just don't think they're gonna. I don't know. Texas A&M to me, since Marcel Reed has been in the lineup, it gives them a little juice, but I still don't know. I'm giving Missouri the benefit of the doubt. If you're a top 10 team, go out there and prove it. And I feel like this is the week they're going to do it.
All right.
They're one-dimensional for sure.
Man.
I'll tell you the one that I don't really understand, and there's a lot of love coming in for South Carolina and how good South Carolina is. I don't think South Carolina's going to be able to score.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. Like I think you look at Ole Miss's defense, they're legit now. I mean, people just, while they did not do a great job last week in getting off the field, they gave 3 first downs to Kentucky by way of penalty.
Yep.
I mean, who's the dynamic wide receiver that you're going to hold if you're South Carolina or if you're Ole Miss playing South Carolina? I don't know, man. I think Ole Miss, you're getting them on sale this week. And I don't know about you, Cole. I'm sure you're probably on the other side because you look at Ole Miss's offensive line and they freak you out. I think South Carolina is a really trendy dog.
I'm not necessarily on the other side of it. I'm concerned about the South Carolina offense. I mean, it's the number one rush defense in the nation, regardless of level of competition. They've gotten ball carriers to the ground, and they've been sound. And so, if there's no Lenore Sellers and no Rocket Sanders, or even if they are 60, 70%, I don't know how else you're going to force that defense to not lock in on the run game and be able to be problematic there. So now, do I think that if you have those two in and they're close to full capacity, you can give them problems? Yes, absolutely. Jackson Dart, we've talked about it, holding on to the ball for a while, like not necessarily as comfortable as he's been at other points in time in his career. But you think Juice Wells is going to go in there and doesn't want to catch 15 for 300? I promise you he does.
He needs to because I'm telling you, man, Trey Harris, the amount that he's having to carry this team in the passing game, given how talented Juice Wells is and how talented those two tight ends are, like they gotta start to distribute a little more. And I love Trey Harris. Trey Harris is great, but when you have 36% target share, that's absurd. That's too high. That's 10th in college football, and every other team, every other person that's in front of him is literally a one-man show. To put things in perspective, Ted McMillan at Arizona, who's amazing, right? I mean, an amazing player, and is by far Arizona's best option offensively. Everything goes through Ted McMillan. He's at like 38% target share. So the fact that Trey Harris is at 36 when you have Juice Wells and Priestcorn and Caden Lee and Naquan Wright, like I think they got to start spreading the ball around. And if they don't, man, it's just a huge mistake.
I'm with you. It just doesn't. There's too many other weapons for that to be happening. And then on top of that, the run game just seems to be, I don't want to say ignored, but it definitely hasn't been the priority that I feel like it needs to be recently. I mean, I just don't know how you don't have more emphasis on just handing the ball off. Protect your quarterback. Like Greg said, protect your number one target. They don't need the workload that they're getting on that consistent of a basis. All right, so a lot more coming up next hour. Nick De La Torre is going to tell us about a weird week down in Gainesville. Changed some things up, did some things differently. Lineup's going to be a little bit different. How much difference does it make as far as this Florida football team that we're going to see on the field against Central Florida, who's favored in the swamp, by the way?
Yep.
We'll discuss that one. Stanford Steve coming up at 9 o'clock this morning. He's out on the West Coast, getting set for game day at Cal. How dangerous could that Miami game be playing in the land of weird? We'll discuss that one and more right after this on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Listen on the app. Watch on the app. You can search YouTube, Jocks945. Always check out the show there. Friday, October 4th, 8 a.m. Hour number 2 underway on a Max Ball Friday. And a lot of conversation with us, with other people around the Florida Gators coming up this weekend. We're going to get to Nick De La Torre here in just a moment. First, yesterday, Mets take out the Brewers 4-2. They win that series 2-1. Massive home run late by Pete Alonso to be able to send the Mets on. They'll hit the Phillies tomorrow, 3:08 on Fox, Game 1. Game 1 in the ALDS, Tigers Guardians.
Everybody in the NL East is eating. Golly.
Crushing.
Everybody's chomping.
Mm-hmm.
Except for some.
Oh.
Did the
12:08
Nationals make the
tomorrow.
playoffs too? They probably should have.
No, that's not a good
Maybe the
baseball team.
Marlins.
Not a good baseball team. Tigers Guardians, Game 1, 12:08, TBS, True TV, and Max. So just take your pick wherever you want to watch that dynamic Game 1 of the ALDS. Royals at Yankees tomorrow, 5:38 on TBS and Max. And then 7:38 p.m. tomorrow night on FS1, Padres at Dodgers. Yamamoto going for the Dodgers, Greg.
Yoshi Yamamoto. That's my biggest concern. Is our pitching staff is just not great. A little banged up.
Feels like you got $700 million sunk into it, so shouldn't be a concern. But nonetheless,
based on buzz out of Chavez Ravine, Shohei is available to pitch.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, great idea. Let him
Just
make
saying.
his first appearance on the mound in the postseason, coming off of Tommy John surgery. Really good idea. That's good.
He got Tommy John like forever ago.
No
Let
problem.
it rip, Shohei.
Yeah,
Rip
go
it.
for it. Throw your
Let's
DH
put
out
that
there on the
UCL
mound.
to the test.
Let's do it. Why not? Why not? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you go to Bromberg's is the question that I want to know.
Well, you cannot buy a UCL at Bromberg's. But they do have giftware, and they do have watches, and they do have timeless pieces of jewelry that you'll want to purchase and just to have in your family for sure. 2 locations, Mountain Brook Village and the Summit. You're going to enjoy that luxury shopping experience from the oldest business firm in the state and the nation's oldest family-owned and operated retailer. They do that special one-of-a-kind piece for you from their master jeweler, and they also are going to set the standard when it comes to customer service. So go and see them in Mountain Brook Village and the Summit, or you can shop online. Have it delivered to your home at brombergs.com.
All right, let's go to the Buyers Right hotline. Welcome in Nick De La Torre. He covers the Florida Gators. And, Nick, you have been a very intriguing follow this week. And last week into this week. And Florida didn't even play last week. First thing that I want to try to get an understanding of, you had a story about how much they changed up practice and did things differently. We know the reasons, of course, that you hadn't had the success you wanted. But how different and exactly what has been different for the Gators through this bye week?
Yeah, I think the bye week is interesting. They kind of went back to almost a spring game format. You know, that week leading up, they split the team into 2. You've got essentially an orange team and a blue team, and just make everything competitive with gassers on the line. Nobody likes to run, especially after practice. So you can get some competitive juices flowing during team periods in practice if you know that the loser has to run when you're done. So I think that's interesting. You know, there's the sentiment among fans that Billy's coaching for his buyout. Certainly not. They're trying as many things as they can. They mic'd up the defensive players in practice, every single player, to be able to hear and sync up what they're doing with what they're saying during practice. So they're trying everything. You know, it's no stone left unturned. It's obviously they haven't had the success they want, so they're not just coasting into a buyout, as some fans would say. They're definitely trying to shake things up and try new things.
At this point, is it salvageable? I mean, outside of running the table, outside of maybe beating Georgia, beating Tennessee, beat those 2 teams, obviously anything's possible, but is there anything that's salvageable at this point for Billy Napier? I mean, is there a chance he could get retained in the event in which this thing turns around?
Yeah, I think I believe in Santa Claus before I believe that Florida's going to go up to Knoxville and beat those Tennessee Vols. But I've kind of consistently said if Billy can win 6 or 7 games, that he'll be coaching Florida in 2025. I just don't know that the road, the way that they've looked against Miami and Texas A&M, really the only 2 real teams they've played, I just don't know that road to 6 is manageable. Let's say you beat UCF this week and chalk up Florida State. That's 4. You still have to then get 2 more wins between Tennessee, a Kentucky team you've lost to 3 years in a row. You're not going to beat Georgia. You're not going to win at Texas. So then you've got to beat Lane Kiffin or Brian Kelly and LSU at home. It just doesn't seem the way that Florida has looked that there is a path to 6. But I think if Billy wins 6 or 7, given the difficulty of this schedule and then what those wins would mean down the stretch here over the teams they would have to beat, that he could be back in 2025. It's just the road that Florida fans and I think people here in Gainesville just don't see that road to 6 or 7 being realistic after you lose to, a first-year coach in Texas A&M, and really the way you lost to Miami, I think was pretty damning for the season and the season opener.
We're talking with Nick De La Torre. He covers the Florida football team and had the week off, now coming in to play UCF as an underdog. You've had 2 weeks to kind of look at this matchup. Does Vegas have that right? Should that be the line? And where does Florida have to overcome its biggest obstacle from a matchup perspective to overcome that and find the way to win as an underdog in the swamp against a non-conference opponent?
Yeah, I mentioned it in the offseason. There's definitely a big brother, little brother syndrome with Florida fans, and it's UCF is still talking about beating Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl in 2021, and Florida fans are responding with, "We literally don't think about you ever." And I mentioned back in the summer, hey, this is a UCF team with Gus Malzahn, who has a 1,300-yard rusher and RJ Henry coming back. They went into the portal, grabbed another 1,300-yard rusher. Oh, and Gus Malzahn has the NCAA College Football 25 quarterback he would create himself, who already beat you in the swamp. And I said in the summer, hey, this is a game you need to be looking at. And then when I go and look at Florida versus the run, which UCF by design is one-dimensional. They want to run the football. I think they've run the ball 209 times to just 96 passes. And Florida can't stop the run, giving up 188 on the ground. And if you take away the Stanford game, where the Stanford Bulldogs had no interest in running the ball, and just look at their Power 4 opponents, Florida's giving up 231 on the ground. On defense, they don't get off the field, the second worst in the SEC, allowing 46% conversion on third downs, 80% on fourth downs. I see that as a real problem for Florida. And maybe you got the blueprint a little bit last week, but nobody else in the country has a Travis Hunter. So you're going to have to play man. I think put your cornerbacks on an island, play man defense, but you have a 6'4", 250-pound quarterback who, if he escapes and gets around, now your cornerbacks have their back to him, and how many cornerbacks are trying to tackle KJ Jefferson in space anyway? So I think Florida has to sell out against the run and make UCF one-dimensional on a different aspect. If you can slow them down and make KJ Jefferson beat you with his arm, I think that's the path for Florida to win this week. I just haven't seen Florida's defense. Their front doesn't really get penetration. They don't get pushed from the inside, and they've been really bad getting off the field this year, to the point where I think Florida against Texas A&M had 12 to 15 offensive plays in the first half. So those are huge question marks for me. What does Florida's defense look like? And they didn't have success stopping KJ Jefferson last year when Arkansas rolled into the swamp. I think Arkansas had 1 or 2 wins at that point before they beat Florida.
Here's my question mark, though. Really, I know it's going to be tough to defend this offense. I'm not so sure either offense is going to get either defense are going to get a bunch of stops in this one, because I don't think the secondary for UCF is very good at all. I'm amazed at how many people are obsessed with DJ Lagway, as if he is by far the best option at the position. I disagree with that. I think Graham Mertz still gives you the best chance to win. Graham Mertz has been good this year. And I had someone tell me the other day, man, the lone bright spot is DJ Lagway on this whole team. I'm like, really? Like, what are you talking about? Because G.J. Lagway is really not ready yet, if I'm going to be completely honest. So what is the obsession with DJ Lagway, first and foremost? And secondly, isn't it still Graham Mertz's team, last I checked?
Yeah, it's the Christmas syndrome. You know, your birthday could be like mine on November 25th, and you get a nice bike on your birthday, and then 1 month later you've got a bunch of new toys under the Christmas tree, and you forgot about that bike that's only a month old. Graham Mertz has right now a higher ceiling and a higher floor than DJ Lagway. Long term, I think DJ Lagway certainly has more God-given ability than Graham Mertz and will have a higher ceiling. But if you're Billy Napier, you're kind of walking a tightrope. If you want to coach DJ Lagway long term, you need to win games now. And I think Graham Mertz gives you that ability. Florida fans kind of got intoxicated by the Stanford game because it looked like, okay, well, maybe what DJ Lagway's floor was lower, or we thought it was lower than it actually is. And you kind of forget that it's Stanford and an FCS opponent. So there's definitely excitement around DJ Lagway. He's the highest ranked quarterback Florida's ever signed. I think you'd have to go back to Jesse Palmer, and that was like in the infancy stages of ranking players at the time. So I get it. Florida fans want something to latch on to and to be excited about. And Graham Mertz has probably 8 games left in his career in college, while DJ has a whole career ahead of him. But I agree with you. You know, Graham Mertz has not been the reason Florida has lost games. You were going back to last year. I remember being in Columbia, South Carolina, watching Graham throw Florida to a come-from-behind win in the fourth quarter and thinking, okay, that's probably the last thing I've been looking for him to do. Can he win a game with his arm? And he's shown you that he can. I think the one thing that Florida's offense has lacked with Graham is passing the ball, the verticality of the offense, and pushing the ball down the field, which they saw more with DJ. And they kind of, I said, got intoxicated with DJ throwing 40-yard bombs after being sober on dink and dunks for the last 10 games with Graham. But Florida just needs to win football games, and I agree with you. I think right now Graham Mertz gives you the best opportunity to win games.
Latour covers the Florida Gators, joining us now on the Buyers Right Hotline. The quarterback rotation will continue. Offensive line rotation will not, according to you. I'm interested, one, if you think that's actually going to solve a lot of the issues moving forward, but also a health update from Eugene Wilson and his availability. And then you also talked to Billy Napier about some youngsters that could potentially help. I think you named 10, you said. How much of that is real? How many of those could actually really come in and make a big difference for the rest of this season?
Yeah, I think they'll continue rotating a little bit on the offensive line, but if you break down the numbers like I did, there's certainly 5 guys who have stood out, and it's not a surprise. I even asked Austin Barber on the field one day, like, hey, why are you playing 25 snaps a game? Like, are you hurt? And he was like, you need to ask coach. I'm not hurt. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, I think the quarterback rotation is interesting, and that's kind of the tightrope I mentioned earlier. Is Graham gives you the best chance to win, but DJ Lagway needs to play in Neyland if he's going to be your starting quarterback of the future, and you're not going to be competing for an SEC championship or a playoff spot this year. Hey, let him feel what those environments are now in what essentially is a lost season in a lot of Florida fans' minds. Let him feel that now and get those growing pains out of the way now. So I do agree that they need to continue rotating. While Graham gives you the best chance to win, DJ's your future, and you want to give him those live reps now. So it'll be a big test. And I agree with you when you said that UCF has some deficiencies in the secondary. If you can keep Graham and DJ clean and give them time, I think you can kind of pick apart UCF secondary, and that can be a way Florida can win this game. And then Eugene Wilson is kind of ties in with the young players. He's young himself. He's been able to practice a little bit this week. It'll be a game time decision. Florida didn't have to go, with the availability report this week because it's a non-conference opponent. I think Eugene will probably test it out just the way he did against Texas A&M in pregame to see how it feels. But behind him, there's a player, Aiden Mizell, who plays the exact same position, and I think we saw him at Mississippi State really show what kind of player he is and the kind of home run threat he can be. He had 2 60-plus yard touchdowns called back. I think one was the right call with his forearm being down, and then the other one might be time to just put flags on guys. If Montrell Johnson's hit is called a blindside block, hitting a player in his chest. Aiden Mizell's definitely one of the guys. Then there's some other guys. Jacoby Jackson, he's not necessarily young, but he's a JUCO transfer, really playing his first ball this year, has done really, really well. Jaden Ball is a running back. I know that you really like Cole from seeing him in the spring game. And it'll be interesting to see because I think this staff really does like Montrell Johnson. He hasn't graded out as high as some of the other running backs. But that was kind of my biggest question. With Florida losing Trevor Etienne in the offseason, how do those running back reps shake out? And right now it's about 75, 80% Montrell Johnson. But as the season goes, does Jaden Boggs, does Jacoby Jackson, does Trayon Webb start eating into those? So those are some of the younger guys, I think. And then if Eugene can't go, it'll be up to Marcus Burke, who has been on campus for a while, but just really hasn't been able to put it all together. He's a guy that they'll need to step up at receiver if Eugene Wilson can't play this week.
Hey, Nick, we appreciate the time. Great stuff. Like I said, you've had just a ton of coverage over the last week for a game that appears like it's going to be really interesting. So we'll see how it plays out Saturday night. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Nick De La Torre covers the Florida Gators, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Follow him on Twitter at De La Torre, Torre. Find his work at Gators Online on 3 Sports Network. I don't know, Greg. Quarterback rotation. Offensive line apparently done rotating. New players that haven't played a lot now in the lineup, going to give you more meaningful snaps. I think we all kind of hope it works. Like you said, is it salvageable? How different is this thing going to look Saturday night?
I don't know. I don't know how different it's going to be. The multiple quarterbacks make no sense. Like, appeasing the fan base at this point is ridiculous. You have to win games. And Lagway does not give you the best chance. Like, what message are you sending the locker room when you start rotating a guy that doesn't give you the best chance? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I just don't get it. But it is what it is. I think your best path to victory in this one is to throw your way to victory. That might be putting your defense and hanging your defense out to dry. I think you'd probably love to kind of melt some clock. You'd love to play a little slower, disrupt the rhythm that they have offensively at UCF. Give that defense a blow a little bit because they're going to be going up against some tempo. That'd all be really helpful, but I don't know if that's the pathway here. I think you just tack them and hope your defense can make a couple plays against KJ Jefferson, who's good but not great, and against a run game that can certainly cause some issues for you.
So we'll pick that one a little bit later in the show. Stanford Steve coming up at 9 o'clock. He'll give us some of his picks for the weekend. But that'll be one that we take a little bit deeper dive into and definitely give you our final thoughts on before we go off the air today. Get the bag picks coming later in the show. Game Day Men's Health, they don't want to help you later. They want to help you right now. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com. If you lack energy, if you're getting poor sleep, you feel on edge, it could all be the effects of low testosterone. A lot of guys are experiencing this, and Game Day Men's Health wants to help you. Weight loss. They have multiple programs right there in-house that can help you get some of the weight off. They can help you feel better, just in general. They've helped me with a couple of health issues. They can help you as well. Get all the facts at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Mention Cube. Save 10% on any service that they offer. Locker room environment, low stress. Not going to try to push you anything that you don't want to do, but they do have options for you. And those options have minimal upfront costs for all those programs. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Schedule the free consultation today. And with that, you're going to get a free testosterone test, free PSA test right out of the gate. So you have an idea of where you stand, baseline, and then find out what Game Day Men's Health can do for you. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today. Tell them you heard about them right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, let's get to breaking down a couple of these games coming up this weekend. We'll dive in. Max Ball next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. Wisconsin running back Chaz Malinsky's stepping away from the team. Clemson transfer, 26 games, 1,827 yards, 14 touchdowns this year. So that could be pretty big impact moving forward for the Badgers, G-Mac. I mean, not great. Your leading rusher decides that he's going to try to go get healthy for the rest of the year, take care of some of his bumps and bruises.
Yeah, did he leave anything in there to say that he might come back? Like, that's what I can't quite figure out. It's kind of
coaching staff said
strange.
that they are open to his return and did have a torn ACL previously, so he's a little dinged up, wants to get healthy. It feels like the red shirt deal, but we don't know. I don't know exactly what it is, but when the coaches say that they're open to you returning and they support your decision, it doesn't also feel like it's on, negative ground. 11 a.m. tomorrow, Big Ten Network, 1-3 Purdue is at 2-2 Wisconsin. So they'll have to do without him in that game. So not great. Not exactly what you want for that one. La Tech head coach Sonny Cumbie is going to turn over play calling to co-offensive coordinator, offensive line coach Nathan Young. So we're already seeing this week, last week, some play calling duties being shifted around in college football. Let's go quickly to this Iowa-Ohio State game, 2:30 on CBS tomorrow. GMAC, we talked about just the Ohio State side of this a little bit, but we know what Iowa's going to present. We know physically what they're going to be. We know they're going to limit your touches and try to slow the game down. But are there anything specifically that you look at and say, yeah, this is one that I think they can really give Ohio State some issues with?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot that concerns me. Do you think they'll be able to run the football? That's my biggest question.
Ohio State?
No, Iowa.
I'm like you. And Ohio State fans don't like this, and I understand it. It's your team, whatever. You had a couple guys that flash on occasion. I'm not gonna say that you don't. I'm not gonna say there's not talent. I'm not gonna say that there's not guys that are tough to deal with. It's the consistency of said players. It doesn't look like an elite unit all the time. And I think that's kind of the part that I look at. Like, Tyleik Williams can be a problem, but then he almost vanishes for multiple series at a time. Ty Hamilton can be a handful, but then he just goes away. Jack Sawyer will flash a nice pass rush move every now and then, but it's not like every series. So I think Iowa can get some, but I don't. Is this defense beginning to lean towards more being bend but don't break, as opposed to the super aggressive nature in which it was brought in to be? I don't really know the answer to that question, Greg, but it partially feels like it to me.
I don't think they have anybody. I mean, what offense have they played where you're like, oh yeah, we need to be aggressive against these guys?
No, it's also a great
against
point.
the offenses that they played. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just wait for them to screw it up and we'll be fine. I mean, that's. I mean, let's just be real. I mean, that's Michigan State in a nutshell. Aiden Childs has 8 picks this year. Like, why would you be aggressive and potentially get burned by a guy that's likely going to throw it to you at some point or another? So, yeah, I don't think we know anything about Ohio State yet. And I know their fans don't like that, but it's the reality. I mean, I think they're going to ramp up the pressure next week when they have to. But this is an embarrassingly bad start to the season from a scheduling standpoint. Their non-conference games are embarrassing. And guess what? And those are like, oh, you're an SEC homer. Ole Miss's non-conference schedule is embarrassing too. I mean, it is. I don't know what else to tell you. So it's frustrating to me to kind of look at them and not know what they are on October 4th. But it is what it is. I mean, we'll find out what they are next week. But I'm not even sold on Oregon yet. So we'll see. I mean, I think Ohio State's definitely the class of. I think their schedules. I think their talent level is unbelievable. But talent doesn't mean you're great. There's a lot of really talented teams that don't play well, a la Miami last year. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. All right, so I do think Iowa will get a little bit going on the ground. Is it going to be a dominant rushing performance? No, I don't think so. I don't think that it goes that direction. So, but maybe a little bit more complicated than what we've seen thus far. All right, Missouri and Texas A&M, one that we have kind of gone back and forth with. We've had multiple conversations about when we talk about, like, finally this game, what it's going to be, how it's going to play out. You mentioned A&M feeling like they are becoming a little bit one-dimensional on offense. And I'm kind of with you there, but the rushing attack has been really good. And the offensive line, I think, is kind of coming together. I think Missouri's defensive line is better than people give it credit for. But I think adding a tight end that can help you out there, and with what Le'Veon Moss presents physically, he can be tough to deal with. I just think the consistency in the pass game probably not there. And one of my I've said this before on the show, Greg. Brady Cook's going to have to go win them a game at some point. He's going to have to be great for them to win a game. I don't know if this is that game. Not 100% certain. He hasn't had to be great yet. He hasn't had to go above and beyond yet. And he's done a nice job of just orchestrating the offense within what he's been asked to do and basically what the system calls for. Can Texas A&M make this game that different? I don't know. I understand what everybody's going to say about this A&M defensive line, and we love this defensive line. Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, both playing great. I don't think that we thought that you were going to get as much off the edge as with Nick Scorton as you've gotten. I mean, thought he was going to be solid, but he's been amazing. Also, you throw in like a Cassius Howell as well, has been a disruptor and somebody who's been a problem. I think with the perimeter style of this run game, getting that D-line going east and west, some of the screen game, some of what the movement's going to do to the linebackers, getting them out of position, which I don't think it's an elite group of linebackers anyway. I think Missouri moves the ball. And I think maybe some higher percentage throws could go for scores. And then defensively, I think Missouri has a couple disruptors up front that can be a problem for an offensive line that's been inconsistent. Those are the reasons that I lean Missouri, that I like Missouri in this game. I think McClellan can be a problem up front. Johnny Walker's still a real good football player. So I like Mizzou. Interested to see which direction you're going with this game and why.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. I lean Texas A&M, and it's almost exclusively because they're battle tested. And I've seen this team in the fire. And it doesn't mean that I feel great about A&M long term, but I've seen this team in the fire respond. Whether it be Arkansas last week, and you can point to a couple mistakes that Arkansas made that gave Texas A&M chances, or even in them playing out of their gap a couple times against Notre Dame, and how they adjusted and fixed it. And I liked their defensive plan a lot last week. So I don't know. I mean, I think this is going to be one where you absolutely 100% have to throw it to beat them. I think A&M's going to force you to do that. They are going to be as sound as they've ever been, probably up front. I think their defensive line can neutralize the Missouri offensive line and run game, which means it's on Brady Cook to win the game. And I think Brady Cook's a much better player right now than Marcel Reed, but I still don't trust him. And I have not seen anything this year that would make me feel great about them throwing their way to victory, especially given the teams they've played against. So this is by far the most talented team that Missouri's faced, and I've been unimpressed. So usually when the level of challenge on the other side increases, the quality of play has to increase more, and I don't know if they can do it. I'm taking A&M. I think they lose. I think Missouri loses this game, but it's not one I feel really great about at all.
Saber, which direction are you going with this one?
Part of me wants to believe in Missouri. I have, and I'm going to take Missouri, but it's very reluctant. If it finds out that A&M wins, like, okay, that's not going to surprise me. But I know some people have been not as high on Missouri as others, but I think Damian said it best earlier. Like, if Missouri is the top 10 team that they're purporting to be, you can't lose this one.
No, totally fair. All right, Damian, you're going Mizzou in this game, right?
Yeah, I'm going Mizzou. I think, again, like if you're a top 10 team, this is the thing you got to get. And I think that if you're Texas A&M, you have performed well in some areas, but Mizzou got to play up to the ranking. I think they get it done.
All right.
Who's the best team Missouri's played, do you think? Vandy or Boston College?
Coin flip between the two. I think Vandy's a little more athletic. I think Boston College may be a little bit more veteran-laced, and that gives them some advantage, a little more experienced. I don't think there's a massive difference between the two. I think Vandy is a little bit more difficult to defend, but I think both those offenses can be tough. Why?
I just don't know. There's something. I think the perception that this is a great offensive line is not a reality right now. I think the perception that this defensive line's great is not a reality right now either. So that's my biggest concern, is that we think that their line of scrimmage is really good. And I don't know if that's the case yet.
Wait a minute,
Because
Greg.
embarrassing
I saw
VC and
26 minutes ago, PFF has their highest graded offensive lineman this year, and Armand Membu and Connor Tolson are in the top 10. So there goes your theory.
We know where you get your information. You don't actually watch them. You just go to PFF.
That's the only thing you need to do, actually.
And the thing that I've watched them, I'm just not, I don't know yet. Like, they look fine, but I just look at the guys they're going against, and I'm just underwhelmed.
All right. Here's the thing with A&M, though. They've been battle tested, but it hasn't really been clean football all the time.
No, it hadn't.
So, like, we think Arkansas is a great team.
I think Arkansas is difficult to defend.
They pushed them to the brink.
I think Arkansas is very difficult to defend.
I think they can be, but I don't know about consistently if they always are. And so,
No, they're the farthest thing from consistent, but they are still tough to defend.
yes. All right.
I think Arkansas might be tougher to defend than Missouri.
No.
It's not that big of a gap.
From a coverage perspective, it is.
Well, from the wideout perspective, sure, no doubt about it.
So it's good.
But I also don't think Brady Cook's as dynamic as Taylon Green. No disrespect.
No, I don't think he's anywhere close to being that dynamic, no doubt. All right, so you mentioned Arkansas, so let's get to that one. Some folks thinking this one could be a little more interesting than people are pointing to. We'll get to that one in just a second on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning, 8:38 a.m. Friday, October 4th, right here on Jocks 94.5. G-Mac, tell our listeners about B-Dry.
B-Dry has been serving Alabama and customers across the Southeast for more than 60 years, and they're going to back things up with a life of the structure warranty that you'll only find with them. They also are going to give you the best price, 12 months interest-free and no payments for 12 months, so you get the job finished, and you don't have to spend $1 for at least a calendar year. Go and check them out at bdryalabama.com. This is the largest waterproofing company in the country. They also can stop all 5 ways that water can enter your foundation. So go and check them out, bdryalabama.com, or you can give them a call. This is the biggest company, job done right, best price, and the strongest warranty in the business at 942-1976, or visit bdryalabama.com.
I mentioned Tennessee, Arkansas this weekend, 6:30 on ABC. So you'll have Herb Street and the boys on that call. Number 4 Tennessee, undefeated, 4-0 this season, taking on 3-2 Arkansas. Yes, difficult to defend. A team that obviously offers a lot of challenges offensively. But with what Tennessee has up front, how different does that become? With the disruptors that they have on that defensive line, the ability to athletically and quickly crash the mesh of what Taylor Green's going to want to do, G-Mac, does that alter sort of maybe how difficult you look at this Arkansas offense and that it may be to defend?
I think the toughest thing about defending this offense are the off-schedule plays where you can diagnose the run game right, and for whatever reason, your edge defender, who you have hat on a hat, you're one-on-one with Taylor Green, he can make you miss, and he can take it the distance. So it's not so much scheming it up as it is making the play when it's there to be made. Like, if you're in one-on-one, you have to make the tackle. If you are in a situation in which you're unblocked, you have to drop the ball carrier or the quarterback when the opportunity presents itself. So to me, it's not even as much about scheme as it is about Arkansas's whole offense is designed to get their ball carrier against one defender. And that one defender has to make the play. And if he doesn't make the play, it leads to either a big play or a nice gain. So I think that's the biggest thing. Yes, I'd crash. Yes, I'd have the linebacker peel over the top. But I know that I absolutely 100% have to drop said ball carrier, because if I don't, I got problems.
You're going to be in a world of hurt, specifically on the other side of the ball. Arkansas's defense. Linebacker's been a strength. You've had some production up front. Landon Jackson, probably his best game of the year last week. Looked really good off the edge for that Arkansas defense. I don't know if I'd label the secondary as a strength. Probably linebacking core is where I would go with that. How do they even start to match up with, I mean, listen, the linebackers can fly. Like Xavier Sorey is one of the faster linebackers in college football. But from a secondary standpoint, Danico Slaughter's been pretty good. But I don't know from a coverage perspective if that's what I look at and say that's a strength. What if Travis Williams, with what he has at his disposal, how do you try to play this Tennessee offense? What do you try to take away with your personnel there in Fayetteville?
Man, it's tough. So I think the first thing, you got to stop the run. I don't care what it takes. You got to stop the run. I think you have to play some zone against Nico, and you have to make sure that you change up the look right before the snap. So disguise is paramount. And that's not easy to do against a team that utilizes tempo as much as Tennessee does. So I think changing things up and changing up the disguise and shifting and moving and adjusting right at the last second can be really beneficial.
Yeah, it's from a pass rush perspective, you feel pretty good about it. Being able to get home, being able to cause some problems. Eric Gregory's done some good things inside for that defense. I feel like they've got a couple of guys that can be problematic. It's just you can mix in now those gap scheme runs, how they work the inserts with the tight ends. I mean, linebackers, the speed maybe not as important as just the understanding of how to fit it, specifically if you're going to try to do it with fewer numbers. In that Arkansas defense, I just think putting this secondary on those islands could be really problematic. TJ Metcalf has been really good back there, but collectively, I mean, we've talked earlier this week about the blitz beater that Auburn ran, and a DB just taking, I don't even know what kind of an angle to try and go intercept that ball, and it goes for 6 to the house. So that's where I think Razorbacks got to be careful if they're going to try to attack this offense and try to go after them, because it's not one that they've got juice, and you give them a couple free throws, it's going to be a big problem. I think Tennessee is fine in this game. There are a lot of folks nervous about it, G-Mac. Do you feel any kind of an upset coming on here for the Vols?
I don't know if I'd go as far as to say an upset, but I think this one's going to be a little tighter than you'd like. It wouldn't be one I'd want to mess around with. I think Arkansas is going to be coming out swinging, and I think this Arkansas group has enough firepower offensively to make life a little difficult for 4 quarters. So I also think it's everyone and their brother. Like, I am amazed at how many Tennessee fans right now, given where this program has been, have already started to talk about the Bama game. Like, when you have that situation, man, you got 2 games left. One's a rival in Florida. The other is on the road against a dangerous Arkansas team. So I just think that, hey, yes, you should win. If this game were played at a neutral site and all things were considered, and this is the only game you played this year, and you weren't looking ahead or looking behind, this is no problem. But it's not the reality of the situation. So I think this is going to be a tough game. I think it goes the distance. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you. Got to tackle that Arkansas secondary. Arkansas defense got to get ball carriers to the ground because they can create explosive plays with high percentage runs and throws. I've tackled like game day meals in my day. Nothing compares to the flavor boost from Dale's Seasoning. If you're headed to a tailgate, this marinade is your MVP. Just 30 minutes with Dale's, and your meats and veggies transformed from bland to bold. Ribs, burgers, even veggies you're grilling up. Dale's versatility is a game changer. Make every bite count and score big with Dale's Seasoning. We'll continue Max Ball next on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning, 8:48 a.m., Friday, October 4th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Listen online, jocksfm.com. App is in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can always go download those for free. Check out segments, interviews that you may have missed, including Nick De La Torre, who joined us a little bit earlier in the show, giving us his thoughts on Florida, Central Florida. Let's dial in on that one, G-Mac. When you just look at this matchup, we know super productive at running back. Quarterback played a ton of football, will make mistakes, will give you the ball back. Florida with this bye week sounds like a lot of things going to be different, going to try some new players, maybe healthier at spots, maybe more consistent on the offensive line. Like you said earlier when we talked to Nick, there's parts of this we just don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But based on what you do know, how comfortable are you that Florida actually comes out of this game with a W?
I feel probably 68% confident, which is decent in a game.
I think it's a lot more than a lot of other people have.
I'm about to say, in a game in which the underdog is considerable. I just think Florida has more talent. Like this UCF team, watch them last week. They are just not that great. I mean, I know that they put up outrageous numbers, but I just don't. I don't get it. Like, I think that UCF gets by with a lot of smoke and mirrors. People listening to this show know Gus Malzahn. Like, his offense is interesting, and they usually pour it on people that are not as good. But when they play against someone who's just as good or better, doesn't always happen that way.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm not as sold on UCF as others. Like, I think they're okay. I just don't think they're great.
Yeah, I'm being interested to see it because, I mean, you got a quarterback that knows how to manipulate things. You have a defense that just, I don't even want to say they haven't been disciplined, Greg. They haven't been sound at times, which is just a little bit wild to think about when you're basically in year 2 of said system. You should understand, where to be and how to get there. But not understanding the run fits and just being lost in coverage, that's just, that kind of stuff's inexcusable. And as you just stated, this offense operates on a lot of smoke and mirrors. That concerns me about what has been problematic for the Florida defense this year. They have been out of position, and they have been taken out of position without a lot of the stuff that you just referenced that Gus Malzahn and company are going to throw at them. That's what I worry about is, how are you going to offset that part of it? I guess the discipline, the understanding, the assignment portion of it, because that just flat out has not been sound. And I think it's going to be a very difficult game for Florida to win. I think Florida's going to have to score points to win. And listen, the good news is 425.5 yards per game, second most in the SEC. So that's if you're a Central Florida fan. I mean, that's what Florida allows. You should be able to move the football. But can your defense clamp down on Florida's offense with 2 quarterbacks coming off the most efficient performance in SEC history? Now, granted, that's that Mississippi State defense, which also has not played very well this year.
we can
we're not
take
writing
that with
home
a grain of salt.
We're not writing home about that group. We're not saying that you are exactly what you are based on what we see against them, but it does give them some things to build upon, and some of the skill gets 2 weeks of reps to maybe be able to find their way into the lineup and be able to help in different ways. So I'm interested to see it. I really am, because I just don't know exactly what to expect from Florida. How different can it really be? And that's the thing that has frustrated me, I guess, Greg, about some of the play calls of Florida this year. It's just like it seems to be it's very repetitive, in my opinion, with what you get from that group. It's kind of the same stuff over and over. I mean, you've referenced it, playing plays, not playing the game. I see some of that with this Florida offense, and I see a little bit of not being able to get away from that. And I always thought this was an offense that built itself around options and attachments and forcing you to defend one thing and then finding other things with that. And it's just that I kind of haven't seen it that way this year. And I don't know why they seemingly have gotten away from that, but it's a little bit odd that sort of is what it's turned into this fall.
Well, do you think that there's a way to save it?
Not without some different skill. No. I mean, they got to have guys that can make plays.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't disagree, but I mean, I don't think their skill's terrible. I mean,
No,
I
it's
think their
definitely not
skill.
terrible.
I don't think they have like freak shows. I mean, let's be real. I'd rather rank their skill in the SEC right now. I don't know, 12.
No, this might not be a good practice. Um, if you're talking about where they're going to be, because I mean, you think about some of the other bottom teams. I mean, honestly, whose skill would you take, Vanderbilt's or Florida's? It's close.
No,
It's
I'd take
close.
Florida's. I'd take
Okay.
Florida. But I'm with you.
Uh,
I'd take Florida's over South Carolina.
Especially if Sellers and Sanders are a little bit dinged.
Well, if we can't count
Depending on who's
quarterbacks-
healthy, I might take them over Oklahoma. If
well,
Oklahoma's
right
as
now,
dinged up as they were
right
last
now,
week.
for sure.
Yeah. But I think Mississippi State, I don't think that there's a big difference there. I mean, I think collectively I like that receiving core better. I like their tight ends better. So, obviously quarterback, you're going to take Florida. I mean, all day. So even some of those teams towards the bottom of the league, I just don't think it's a slam dunk that Florida has better skill. And for 3 decades plus, it was a slam dunk that they had better skill than everybody.
Yes.
So I just think they've got to find explosive plays, and they've been tough to come by. And I don't know if that just starts to happen all of a sudden.
Well, I also think they've played against some teams that don't give up a lot of explosive plays. I mean, Miami, that's a handful. Miami's good. They can rush the passer. They can get home. They can cause a lot of problems. A&M, very sound group. Not a group that's going to give up a lot of explosives, or at least none that I've seen. They got gashed a couple times in the run game against Notre Dame, but I can probably count on one hand how many times I feel like A&M's gotten or given up explosives that weren't self-inflicted.
Right.
I don't. Who else do you think has been able to create explosives? I mean, that's the biggest thing is I think they've just played against good defenses and better defenses than what they're going to see this weekend. That's for sure.
Yeah, outside of Mississippi State. I mean, the 2 games that they've dropped, good defenses, yes, and probably better than what they're going to get this weekend. All right, so ultimately, which direction do you go?
I'm going Florida.
Man, I want to, but I just don't feel
The
great
Rube
about
Cube
it.
has +3, so you have to take the Rube Cube.
I don't have to, but I will. I'll ride with Central Florida. I think they find a way to get it done. So there you go. Not feeling good. I also don't like all of this. Like, I know you're searching for things to try to do, but are we real confident in miking up our defensive players in practice to hear what they're saying, to hear what they're thinking? Like, I don't.
It feels like
Just go
it
get
feels like a little
reps,
much.
man. Like, just go run your plays.
It's a little much. It's
why we don't
like
coach, I guess.
desperation mode. Like, we got to work on communication. It's like all those. It's too much.
Stanford Steve, never too much. He'll give us some of his picks for this upcoming weekend right after this on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. He joins us each and every Friday. I guess he needed a little extra sleep this week, G-Mac. It's our boy Stanford Steve.
So soft. If he were to wake up at 4A, that would really be telling us how much he cared and how much he loves ball and how much he loves capping these games. Steve always comes to us thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living. Go to atlasseniorliving.com. Join the Atlas football pool. Click on the football banner. Make some picks against the spread. A couple shout-outs. Resident winner Brenda Dameron from Madison at the Range in Madison, Alabama. And the public pool winner was Anderson Cummings. So go and sign up today and join those pools because you can make $200 from an Amazon gift card if you pick the most winners. AtlasSeniorLiving.com, and they always bring us Stanford Steve. Steve, I feel like it's a giant killer week, man. We're about to have a bunch of teams and a bunch of games that are way, way closer than they should be based on how they look going into it. But when you have a week like this, do you notice anything, or did you kind of get the sense this feels like an underdog happy week?
Yeah, Greg. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously home dogs. I'm thinking, when you look at Arkansas, I'm out here in Berkeley. I feel like I'm behind enemy lines in this place, knowing the whole history of my school and their school and our first time coming to game day. It should be a different kind of atmosphere than what the boys are used to, but that's fine. It'll be fun. But, yeah, I think everybody be on their, P's and Q's. Do you guys think Arkansas will be a better atmosphere than A&M?
Oh, listen, that place is underrated, man. Like, it's specifically the later in the year that it gets, it always became more miserable. Like, we never had decent weather when we played there. It was always some kind of like sleet or mist, and it was like 20 degrees colder than it was in Alabama, and the wind was blowing. The grass was like 4 inches tall. Like, it was just always just gross when you went over there. And now that they've closed it in, it gets louder than you would think. And the fans are pretty tight. They're right there on top of you. So I just, how excited are they right now? That's what I'm wondering. Like, after last week, do you bounce back, and are you that into it? I mean, I think you have more hope than you thought you were going to. I just don't think this is a great matchup for them. Greg does. I don't.
I don't think it's a great matchup for them. No one's a good matchup for Tennessee. I just think when you look at what Arkansas can do at the quarterback position, you catch him on the wrong night, I'm telling you, man, you catch him on the wrong day, you're in trouble. You just better hope he doesn't have his A++ game, because physical talent standpoint, there's few in the sport that are better than him.
Gotcha.
Where do you go, Steve? Which one do you think will be better? I'm in a tough spot because Arkansas is the only place I haven't been in the SEC. So when I look about, I'm really, really interested to see how Tennessee's defensive line goes against that offense in the front. And, their corners and secondary played great against Oklahoma, but Arkansas has got better guys than Oklahoma. But then on the other side with Missouri, I really want to see that offensive line. Reese and I were talking this week about what Brady Cook's done. Like, is this the norm? Was last year an anomaly? Like, what do we expect from him? Like, they've played all home games. He's been good. He's got great weapons, but he hasn't been consistent or to the liking I think that Drink would want. So can that offensive line, with all A&M wants to do up front, like being at the Notre Dame game and costing themselves those long runs, is A&M going to get, super cute with all the movement, and is Missouri ready for that? Like, can they just stay on track on their zone runs? Because when they're right, I think they run it as clean and on the same page as anybody, but then you factor in being on the road for the first time, a quarterback that hasn't played great. Can they stay ahead of the change? That's the difference to me. Is Missouri's been teetering right there, and they haven't suffered a loss, but now this is a totally different animal that they've faced so far through the season, and we're already in October. So the pressure, I think, is all on Missouri. But, seeing what they did, I think they were undefeated on the road last year, but I don't think they had a tough road schedule at all. Maybe, the toughest road game was Kentucky. So Missouri's offense, to me, is what I have my eyes on in that matchup. I forgot the old Big 12 hatred and the old Big 12 rivalry aspect. So it's got to be College Station. I mean, that's heated, right? That's heated.
Huge rival.
Yeah.
Huge.
Hey, more importantly, did Cole? Why don't you Uber to the airport?
Because we don't live in D.C. Ubers are not the easiest thing to get in Birmingham, Alabama, Steve.
But you can schedule them ahead. I don't understand.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Not when they're Uber X. Not in some markets, you big market snob. I don't understand what's wrong with you. Unreal.
Come on, Birmingham has. You could definitely do it in Birmingham.
No, I don't think you can.
I did it in College Station. Come on.
Big market. You don't get it. It's not. You don't understand.
Stop it.
It's tough.
You
all right.
flew out of College Station?
Yeah.
College Station's a good
That's
airport.
the move, man.
Good airport.
Oh, it's one gate. It's great. You got Dallas.
And it's
or Houston.
literally
Dallas
it's a downwind driver from the stadium. It's really easy.
It's awesome.
It's actually it's one gate and two jetways. You have one for United and one for American. It's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend. Couple of interesting games. You and I were texting a little earlier. You have some favorites on the road, or some ranked teams on the road. Ole Miss is now down to 8. That line's steaming in favor of South Carolina. Feels trendy to me. You have Bama on the road at Vandy. That line's steaming down to 22.5 right now. We've already talked about Arkansas and Tennessee. So of the teams that are favored on the road, Miami, Michigan is underdog. Tennessee, Clemson, Bama. Is there one that you feel better about than others?
Just because of the big playness, it's Alabama to me. I still think those guys up front are nothing that Vandy has seen. It's going to be a Bama home game. Think about the atmospheres in these ranked and road teams. Favorites going on the road. I would trust Alabama out of those teams. I get it. It's a huge letdown. Everybody talks about the week after a game like that. But that's why you hire Kalen DeBoer, to keep his team motivated, to make sure you're good on that front. And again, just knowing the explosiveness, and seeing it firsthand, last week, really, I think it's a problem for Vandy, because I think Alabama could play, minimal guys in the box against Pavia in how they try and confuse you up front. So Bama would be the team, that I like.
All right, so I'm interested to go back to the Uber situation and why you're so obsessed with thinking that I should Uber to the airport. Like, why not have control of when I leave? And, well, most of the time, as long as you don't valet, you have access to your car as soon as you get there. That can change, believe it or not. Whether you have access to your car or the keys to your car, either. But why? Why? What's the advantage?
It's exactly, you leave when you want. I told you could schedule in Birmingham. I'm guaranteeing on those apps, Lyft or Uber, you could schedule a pickup and you do it when the airport. It's not the biggest airport. Cars are always right by the airport when you land. I just think it's from what you had to go through, Uber's definitely a valid option you should try.
Or you can park in hourly parking and man up. Like, hourly parking is the easiest, and nobody seemingly
My truck is in hourly parking as we speak.
Yeah, and
at
you wait
Birmingham
whatever
Shuttlesworth International Airport.
It's the best.
And where's it going to be Tuesday? That's the magic question.
Exactly. The other thing that I think is real here, Steve, this week are look-ahead situations. So you see in Oregon hosting Michigan State.
Yep.
Oregon plays they play
Tonight.
Ohio State next week. There's a couple others where you could find maybe a look ahead, a Penn State look ahead situation to USC. USC look ahead situation to Penn State. They're on the road at Minnesota. So is there a look ahead situation that would concern you here in the bunch?
I was thinking about Penn State now that you mentioned that, Greg. Just knowing what all that entails in, a monster game next week, the first one, everybody's going to love it. Great uniform game. But UCLA, I mean, they just can't do it, man. I thought Oregon shot themselves in the foot a bunch last week. I look at Penn State's offense at home as a way better option to score more points than Oregon did last week. So how they've gotten creative, I think Kotelnicki's been really good, but trying to go out there. We know Coach Franklin always knows what
he knows the number.
The number is.
He knows the number,
Exactly.
So that's one you got to be careful because he'll be running no huddle with 90 seconds left, up 24, to get it over the number.
I'll tell you one. It's not next week. It's in a couple weeks, so it's not a look ahead. But I'm real wary of UNLV tonight because last week I thought Fresno was in a tough spot because you didn't know the difference in that go-go offense with Haj Malik at quarterback. And now Syracuse has some tape on what it's going to be. Like they only, UNLV scored 50-something, but they only threw the ball like 15 or 16 times. And Syracuse, got some guys in the portal on the D-line. I'm really interested to see what UNLV looks like tonight because I think Syracuse has the goods to spring that upset. They obviously got to play well. McCord's got to be smart with the football.
That's a lock, stock, and barrel.
Ahead. Yeah, I think that'll be a fun game tonight. I think it should be high scoring. So I look at Syracuse as a live dog on the road, and the one line that makes 0 sense to me is Pitt only giving 2.5 to North Carolina. Like North Carolina has looked as bad as any Power 4 team, and Pitt has been as nice of a surprise as anybody in the Power 4. And Pitt's off a bye, and that offense is great. We know that Carolina gave up 70 to James Madison. They gave up 21 in about 20 minutes to Duke. So that makes 0 sense. I also look at Georgia Tech. They're another one, unranked, giving a boatload to Duke, who's undefeated. Watching that, I think Duke relied a lot on Carolina's mishaps defensively and the one-on-ones they gave them. I think Georgia Tech's a better football team all around that Duke's going to go up against this week.
North Carolina, UCLA, or Mississippi State?
Oh God!
You said that was worse than North Carolina, so I'm just throwing out options for you.
I think
you don't have to answer that question. It's fine.
What about Florida State?
How about can I go D Florida State?
I'd rather get your thoughts on Central Florida at Florida and just how you think this one plays out.
I gave Florida against A&M a couple weeks ago on game day, and I said this was my last stand with them, so I cannot give them out anymore on the show because of what they've done to me. I've tried to believe and know they were going to get up off the deck. But when you look at UCF, man, I mean, that thing last week and how they got humbled, that's a rough deal to come back from. I mean, they just up front, they were bad. I mean, Colorado's, come on, we watch it. Colorado's Colorado. They played their best road, probably the best game that he's been the head coach for. I think that was Colorado. But to UCF, to hear about all the stats and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, they haven't been to a place like the Bounce House, and that was done. So now you got to get up, and now you got to go to Florida, who's the underdog, who we know their backs have been against the wall. I do wonder. I would feel confident in UCF scoring. That's the one thing. Can Florida score enough and keep the ball away from Gus in that offense? But I don't trust KJ going to that atmosphere after what they looked like last week against Colorado. I would definitely lean Florida.
Yeah, I think that's the play for sure. You look at another one. I love how you said North Carolina and Pitt makes no sense. Like anybody knows anything about those two teams. But I'll tell you this, Michigan and Washington, when that line opened, it made no sense. For that game to be Washington 2.5, knowing that Washington is not as good as last year, knowing that Michigan has the same cast of characters in some places along the front four defensively, I cannot. It's Washington or pass. Like, you can't bet Michigan here. You can't. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, how the heck does Vegas have Washington as a comfortable favorite? So help me understand what the thought process is on that game.
You mentioned it, Greg. How they have it. I mean, I'm seeing 1.5 and 2 now, and that's when it starts to get scary about the guys in Vegas when they know they put a number out there, and they know they're going to get bombarded with Michigan being a ranked team, and then going on the road and putting them as an underdog to Washington, who's already had 2 losses. The red zone offense has looked just brutal. When you look at the yards they've accumulated. And not being, I mean, going back to the Apple Cup. I mean, they get all the way down there, and then that speed option is the deal that they run. And then last week, I mean, over 500 yards, and you got to keep kicking field goals, and you saw what happens when you rely on that. I did see a good stat, and since 2009, 14 teams have been underdog to an unranked team while being in the top 10. Those teams have gone 11-3 against the spread, 7-7 straight up. So the thinking is you just take Washington and don't think about it. I'm really curious about Washington's offense against this defense. I mean, Michigan still has that defense. It's their first road game. I know Coach Saban's going to talk about their defense going on the road for the first time, what he expects from them. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, from the mindset thing, you just can't blink and just take Washington and think Jed Fish and that offense can win a low-scoring game.
All right, the Ole Miss South Carolina game, one that it feels like different sides, a lot of folks on. 8.5, Ole Miss favored on the road. Yeah. 2:30 kick, ESPN. Sellers and Rocket Sanders obviously a little bit questionable. Not certain of even if they're in what they're going to look like. Is this just kind of bait, or is South Carolina real underdog in this situation?
I mean, what they've done, I mean, being at the LSU game, I thought that, when Sellers was in, and that's the difference here. LSU's defense is not just not at the level we're used to seeing it. And Ole Miss, like, I get it. They got out in front of their skis. They looked like crap last week. But you did get some really good guys in the portal on the defensive line. Like, those are the guys you got to rely on in this kind of game. South Carolina did a great job with misdirection and quarterback run against LSU, but Ole Miss has guys, and now that you have more tape on how much those South Carolina defenders love to get upfield, I would think Lane has. I mean, it looks like every guy that was being talked about as questionable yesterday looked like they were probable when you look about Trey and Prescorn and all those guys. So I understand it. I mean, it's an interesting number because you got to give more than a touchdown. But if you're Ole Miss, and this, I mean, all we've talked about is them. This is the year to make the playoffs. They can't blow this game. So I would expect Jackson Dart to be really good. I would lean, and it's an afternoon game. So I would lean towards Ole Miss. I think they bounce back with what the capability that they have.
All right, Steve. We appreciate. Oh, go ahead, Greg. One more.
Steve, great stuff, buddy. Really appreciate it, man. Always appreciate you joining us on Fridays. Always enjoy everything you have to offer, and look forward to seeing you next week live from Eugene, Oregon. Go ahead and announce it. Just say that you're going.
I can't do that. I do want to mention in California at our hotel, we have biodegradable cups, and for Cole's sake, we have biodegradable tops. So me this morning at 6 a.m. trying to put a biodegradable top on a cup that's melting, I would only pay to see Cole spill that all over his hands, because
here's the good news:
is I've ever had to
you're decreasing your carbon footprint. So we appreciate you doing that from Berkeley. Well done. Please give Ben the dog a big hug for us, and we look forward to seeing you soon. All right, great stuff.
Will do.
Stanford Steve, who joins us every week. Thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living. That Atlas Senior Living weekly college football pick'em competition. You can get that $200 Amazon gift card. So go to Atlas, ATLAS, seniorliving.com and click on the football banner. The overall season winner will also receive a $1,000 Amazon gift card. Senior housing community throughout the Southeast. So go to Atlas, ATLAS, seniorliving.com to learn more.
All right, when we come back, we'll continue Max Ball. A couple SEC games we hadn't gotten into. Final picks for Auburn, Alabama, right after this on McElroy and Kublick in the morning. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning, Friday, October 4th, 9:23 a.m. Jocks 94.5, JocksFM.com, where you can listen online. 800-239-9569. You want to get in? Any questions, thoughts on games coming up this weekend? Now be the time. Tweet those in as well, at Mac and Cube. Your thoughts on different college football games that will be coming up this weekend, and anything that goes along with those. Anything that goes along with getting a new home, it needs to be Gusty Goulas in the Gusty Goulas Group. 205-542-1996. Call today, see what they can do for you. Or just Google Gusty Goulas Group. You're going to see over 830 five-star Google reviews. Most agents start marketing after you list with them. Not Gusty. He's been marketing. Brokered by eXp Realty, served more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area. He invests thousands of dollars in the latest tools, social media networks, photographers, and more to help you get the best deal for your home and get the best deal on the new home that you want to buy. So, if you need anything from a real estate perspective in Central Alabama, make it Gusty Goulas and the Gusty Goulas Group. All right, G-Mac, let's continue rolling through some games coming up this weekend. Final pick for Ole Miss in South Carolina. We kind of hit that with Steve. I think we're both on Ole Miss in this one.
Yes.
Yeah, don't think that's one that really should be debated, that we need to be concerned about. Tulane is at UAB. That's at noon on ESPN Plus, right there, Protective Stadium in Birmingham. Tulane's 17-point favorite in this game. Do you see a path for Trent Dilfer's group to be able to pull the upset?
No.
Got to limit turnovers. Be number one. Now it's been a little bit of an issue.
Key.
Yeah. Don't put the ball on the ground. That would be number one, and try to be able to find a way to get that one done. Alabama's here at Vanderbilt. I'll be on the call for this one in the booth with Tom Hart. Melissa Lang on the sideline, 315 SEC Network. Bama's 22.5-point favorite. Where are your biggest concerns for Alabama facing off against this Vanderbilt team this weekend?
I would say the biggest are probably not necessarily having your best stuff, not being focused, Jalen trying to play hero ball. Because where Jalen gets in trouble is like in the second half. Make a couple bad decisions in the zone read game, make a couple bad decisions in the run game. I just don't think he played very well in the second half of that football game. Yeah, hit the throw down the right sideline for sure. It was a great play, great throw. Huge moment. But I think he tried to do a little too much. And when he gets into trouble is when he tries to do too much. Just stay within the offense, execute, make sure everybody's communicating. There was even a time there was a little bit of an issue with the snap between Brailsford and Jalen. You could tell Brailsford was getting yelled at by Tyler, and he pointed towards Jalen. Like, I don't know who was at fault there, what have you, but communicate, steady, execute, no emotion, murder ball. Like, that's what I want to see.
All right. When you look at just exactly where Vanderbilt can be most problematic offensively, is it just quarterback being able to ad lib? Is it run game? Is it perimeter runs? Like, what part of the defense has to be on point to have a dominant performance against Vanderbilt Saturday?
Quarterback run game to me is a challenge. Him scrambling, taking off, because you want to get back there, you want to cause disruption, you want to create havoc. But Diego Pavia forces you to always be mindful of where he's at in the pocket. That's my biggest concern. And then perimeter run game. Those are really the two things. Perimeter run game and Diego Pavia in this one that make it a little difficult, for sure.
All right, Mark in Pelham wants to talk this weekend's games. Mark, welcome in. You're on the Buyers Right Hotline.
How y'all doing, guys?
Doing well, thanks.
So it's never too early to talk scenarios. And, yes, I am going to give you well, Wimp's got the blue plate, but I'm going to give you the absolute chalk it down, put the mortgage on this week. I got one. I'm about to head to the window here at one of our local Southeast casinos to do it myself. I'll send Cole a little picture of the ticket so he knows it's legit, and it will cash tonight, actually. Anyway, so this is a scenario I thought about before the year. And before I even talked about it with anybody, the first step of it was Alabama beating Georgia, which has now happened. I think we have, and tell me if I'm wrong, and then what made me even think more about this was G-Mac the other day said the 5 seed in the playoff is going to just beat down the 12 seed, whoever that is. and the 5 seed's most likely going to be the SEC runner-up in the championship game. But is there a real possibility we're going to have 4 7-1 teams? And I don't even know the tiebreaker at this point, but Georgia at 7-1, they'd have to go to Texas and beat them. They'd have to beat Tennessee, which that's at home. So there's one loss. And then Bama would have to lose at Tennessee. I've listened to you guys, another very real possibility. You got 4 7-1 teams. You're 7-1, and the deal breaker gets everybody seated where they're going to go, the tiebreaker. Realistically, would you rather play that extra game to be an SEC champion where you get Milroe hurt? You're absolutely done, obviously. You get any of the quarterbacks other than Texas probably, you're done. So would you rather play that game, or would you rather be 7-1 in the 3rd or 4th seed knowing you're going to be a playoff team? Or, because if you play in the SEC championship game, you're going to want to win it, obviously. So 1 and 5 seed, just follow me on that. What would you rather have? Would you rather know you're in the playoffs as a 6 through 10 seed, have your team totally healthy, ready to go with an extra week of rest? Or would you rather go play where, yes, you could get hurt? I know I'm the worst one in the world about that because I want to win everything. But I'm just saying, from a fan base and from a realistic standpoint, another week of rest may help a lot of those teams after week 14. So I think that's a scenario that is very, very realistic. It's not one of those far-fetched ones. I'd just like to hear what you guys, think about it in that kind of situation. 4 7-1 teams, not Ole Miss.
I got you, buddy. I got you. Let me help you out here.
Okay.
1, it's one less game. 2, there's no guarantee you get the G5 team. And 3, there's no guarantee you get in the playoff. There's no guarantees on any of that. So you could say, well, you're 7-1, you're in. Yeah, I think it's a safe assumption, but it's not a guarantee that you get a home playoff game. Because here's what I think. I think if you're in a Power 5 conference and you play in the conference championship game, you're hosting, regardless of what the circumstances are, you're hosting a home playoff game. I think. I don't see a scenario where you play in the conference title and then you go from hosting to all of a sudden having to go on the road. So I think you might have a chance as the 3rd place team in the SEC to get a home playoff game. You might, but that is far from a guarantee. I think it's possible, I think it's likely, but it's far from a guarantee. So that's what I would say is, like, I would rather control my destiny by getting to the SEC title game, winning it and getting that first round bye, and then having a somewhat favorable matchup potentially in the 2nd round against the 8 seed than I would playing as the 5 seed and then having to play or the 6 seed and then having to play the 3 seed and what have you. So coming off a bye. So that's my preference, but I'm sure everybody views it a little differently.
It's all fair, and you also don't know what other teams are going to do in their conference championship games to potentially be able to leapfrog you, and they're going to get more credit for that. So I would want to play in it. I would want to win it to secure those spots, but that's just me. All right, we'll get to a break, come back, continue Max Ball on the other side next on Jocks 94.5. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning, Friday, October 4th, 9:35 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5.
Let me tell you about my buddy Ben Hedney of the Beham Realty Group. If you're thinking about selling your home, and when it comes to selling, you only want excellence, you need to give my buddy Ben a call at 205-568-2705 or go to BehamRealtyCo.com. If you're struggling to get your house sold because the markets are changing every single day, you need an expert that focuses on adapting at half the time to make sure you and your squad come out on top. That's my buddy Ben Hedden of the Beham Realty Group. You can visit their website at BehamRealtyCo.com or give them a call at 205-568-2705.
When we continue rolling through some of these games, looking at them this weekend, GMAC, outside of the SEC, is there one that we haven't hit that sort of sticks out for you, that we feel like has your attention, is intriguing to you?
Yeah, there's a few that I think are somewhat intriguing for sure. Like USC Minnesota is intriguing. Michigan Washington is very intriguing. I think Texas Tech and Arizona at night is very intriguing. Yeah, that's probably, I memean, SMU Louisville, I suppose. Like, I don't know. That one doesn't do a ton for me, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I think Louisville will roll them. But I just, the games this weekend, I think, have a chance to be much better while they're actually being played than they do in the lead up. You know, the lead up leaves a little something to be desired, but I think the games are going to be more competitive than that.
All right, let's final thought on Alabama Vanderbilt. I do think that some of those edge defenders for Alabama, linebacker is going to have to be on point. Pavia just does a really nice job of orchestrating this thing, and he can make quick last-second decisions that can be harmful to your defense if you're out of position. I also like Cedric Alexander a lot at tailback, but I don't know if they have enough downfield for it to be a real problem. When Bama's on offense, I will say, like, watch these edge guys for Vanderbilt. Pretty good players that I don't think a lot of people know about and hadn't gotten a lot of run. Not saying that they're, dominant takeover guys. But Linus Zunk, 95. Corday Snyder, 96. They've moved Christian James out there, 91 at times. Like, they've got some length on the perimeter. And so whether it's some of those quarterback runs, quarterback reads, they can give you some problems out there at times. Langston Patterson playing pretty good ball at linebacker. C.J. Taylor playing pretty good ball at safety. C.J. Taylor to Ricky Wright, I mean, they've both been playing here for a long time. So, they played a lot of football at the safety position, and that's one that I think you just have to kind of keep your eyes on if you're not necessarily playing up to your potential. So I think they can do some things to complicate this game early. I'm kind of with you, Greg. I just don't think this is the – roll the ball out there, 40-point win just because of who you are. I think it's got to be clean football for Alabama, specifically on defense from an assignment standpoint, because it is a tough offense to defend. It's fun to watch, and defending it, like when we talked to Jihad Campbell yesterday, he's like, I'm looking forward to it because it's so different than what we've seen this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a nice test. Quarterback run game is something that Bama will see again. This will not be the only time they see it this year, so I think that'll be beneficial. I think perimeter run game's intriguing. I think eye discipline is something that will be challenged in a game like this. I think pass rush discipline will be something that is valuable in a game like this. I also think it's going to be of the utmost importance for Bama to commit to the run game. I think that's how you get to Vandy. I think they're going to try to sell out against the run for sure. There'll be plenty of opportunities in the pass, but I think a patient style of attack is what Clark's going to try to force you to play. So don't get greedy. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't think it's going to be one in which Bama comes out and is up 28-0 at the beginning of the second quarter. I just don't see it going like that. I think Vandy will execute well, and they have grinders, and it will be probably a slightly more competitive game than most Bama fans would like. But if they go out and roll them, then that'll tell me a lot about this team's maturity level and ability to prepare and ability to compartmentalize all the praise they received last week.
Bama looking to start 2-0 in conference play for the 9th consecutive season. Diego Pavia, 6 touchdown passes, no picks in the first 4 games. In the last 25 years, only 2 Vanderbilt quarterbacks have longer streaks without throwing an interception. That was Jay Cutler and A.J. Swan. So see if Pavia can keep that going. All right, so let's go to Auburn, Georgia, and get kind of our final thoughts on that one with how we think it's going to play out. You're going to be on the call for it, of course. We've mentioned that a couple of times. 2:30 ABC. I struggle to find sort of this magic sauce that Hugh Freeze is going to be able to come up with and be successful on offense. I'm actually more interested in the Auburn defense and potentially what they can do. I don't think getting to the quarterback is a real strength of this group, and I think if you're going to affect Georgia and potentially do something to their offense that keeps the game competitive, honestly, Greg, I think you got to be able to get to the quarterback. So it's going to be on DJ coming up with pressures, fronts, simulated pressures, and that offensive line has been a little bit of a letdown this year. Maybe not the strength that some of us thought it was going to be, some of that because of injuries. Is that the most important facet for Auburn's defense, is finding a way to get to Carson Beck?
Yeah. I think finding a way to get to him, hitting him, having an effect on his rhythm in the drop back game, but also disguises in coverage. Because if you look at both Bama and Kentucky, both were able to create some pressure. Both were able to hit him for sure, but they also did a decent job in the back end and kind of clouding the picture and giving him uncertainty about cutting it loose, at least early in the game. Now, when he played against Bama in the fourth quarter and he had nothing to lose and he's just ripping it, like, he was great. But it took a little while to get to that point to where he felt like, all right, throw caution to the wind. Let's just send it. So he's been hesitant this year, Carson Beck has. And I think if you can confuse him with some pictures and some pre-snap looks that change at the snap, that can be helpful. And then the other side for Auburn's rushing it, I think they got to run the football. I think they got to shrink the game. The plan that Kentucky used beautifully is the plan that Auburn needs to use as well. I'm not talking about their defensive plan because Auburn doesn't have the horses up front defensively to do what Kentucky did, but I do think their offensive plan has some carryover. Some timely quarterback runs, couple drive extenders, commit to the run game and do not get away from it, and then win a one-on-one battle or two on the outside. You can do that, you can put a lot of pressure on them, and the longer this game goes, the more Auburn is going to create more advantages because the crowd at Stanford will get restless if this game is tight into the third or fourth quarter.
Yeah, I kind of don't see it, being honest with you. I think Georgia covers, and I just think the inability to get to the quarterback, I don't know if Georgia can just consistently open up rush lanes, but I think Auburn will struggle to run the football, and that's going to put them in some bad spots because we know where they've been in obvious pass downs so far this season. We'll see how it plays out. We'll get to our Get the Bag picks next right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning, 9:46 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5. A couple other ones quickly before we get to our Super Sofa game of the weekend. Clemson, Greg, I don't think that this is a struggle for them at all.
No.
Well, a lot of folks think so, so you're with me on that one. Not anything to be concerned about.
I don't see anything from Florida State that makes me feel good. I think Brock Glenn can maybe provide a bit of a spark with quarterback run, but other than that, man, I don't know.
I do think Cal can be complicated for Miami. I think they can kind of control the tempo of the game and complicate things for Cam Ward. Problem is Cam Ward's been really good when things have been complicated this year. Just a later kick out there, I think it can be weird. Do you see a possible upset from Cal over Miami, 9:30 Saturday night on ESPN?
I don't. I think Miami woke up last week and played poorly, and that was all that Mario needed to, create an edge for his team. Cal's gotten by this year by creating turnovers. That's how they've won games, and I don't think that's going to happen against Cam Ward and company. I think they'll run the football. And the other thing I would say about Cal is they can't protect the quarterback. Mendoza has been sacked 6 times or more in multiple games this year. And Miami, I believe, is a top 5 team in the country when it comes to creating sacks. So I don't love the matchup for Cal at all. I think their quarterback will get harassed, and that's not a good situation to be in if you're trying to create a big upset.
Yep. All right, let's get to our Super Sofa game of the week. It's brought to you by TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton. You can watch those games on a Super Sofa from TD's Fine Furniture. Store the size of 2 football fields. Largest selection of furniture in Alabama. They buy in bulk, so you get the best prices. TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton. If you had one to choose from, that's how this works. You only get one game to watch this weekend, Greg. What would be your TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa game of the week?
I'll go to noon Eastern time on ABC. Missouri, the number 9th ranked Missouri Tigers, head to College Station to take on the Texas A&M Aggies. Aggies a slight favorite here. It's not even as much about this game, but the winner of this game is going to be in great position moving forward to be a dark horse playoff contender. If you look at Missouri, they win this game, they will be an underdog in one game the rest of the way, which is pretty wild when you think about that. And then for A&M, one of the more manageable schedules moving forward as well, given how many of their difficult games are actually at home. So I'm going this one because of not so much this matchup, but what remains on the schedule for the two teams in victory.
It's interesting because I would have gone there, but since you did, I will go a different direction, and I'll give you that Miami Cal game.
Let's go.
1, new ACC after dark. 2, Miami making the weird trip left, and as dominant as Miami's offensive line has been, there have been some breakdowns in protection. And I do think that this staff can put together some pressures that maybe get home. It's just going to be, can you manage Cam Ward outside the pocket? Not a lot of teams have been able to do that. But I think that there's a recipe there for Cal to have some success on defense. It goes back to what you said offensively. Can they run the ball enough and protect the quarterback when they have to be able to find success, ultimately win that game? This is just, I need one more test to kind of see how real Miami is before I completely buy in. I don't know if this is going to be all of it, but it's going to be close to it. So I'll take Miami at Cal tomorrow night on ESPN, 9:30 kick.
Well, we have a rivalry game in the SEC. Greg, you will be on the call on this one, 2:30. Georgia Bulldogs and the Auburn Tigers in the Deep South's oldest rivalry. It's a little unique with it being the October edition, but also you look at how this game has been past couple seasons. You look at last year. If it wasn't for Brock Bowers being the Power Ranger that he is, Auburn probably could have won that football game. And I'm interested to see how it looks in Athens. And how about this for a fun fact? Auburn is 17-17 in this game in Athens. And I want to see how Georgia responds as well. So I'm going Georgia and Auburn, 2:30 on ABC with Greg McElroy on the call as my TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa game of the weekend.
For me, I'm going with a new rivalry game. It's halfway in the SEC, but also the other half in the Big 12. Give me UCF at Florida. I think this is going to be an interesting kind of back and forth contest because both teams kind of need a win after UCF unexpectedly losing kind of handily to Colorado last week, and Florida just I know they got Mississippi State last week, or 2 weeks ago, but their season's really kind of on the brink, so they can't really afford to lose this one if they want to have any hopes of making a bowl game. So give me Florida, UCF, which is the normal Cole time slot of 6:45 on SEC Network. However, Cole's been upgraded to middays.
Hey,
for this time. I don't know if it's a
Upgraded.
permanent thing.
How is that
For today.
upgraded?
Oh, it's going to be. I think Central Florida is going to be competitive. I mean, a good game.
I think UCF gets it.
it's
All
a,
right, that's
it's a
our-
state championship game, right? Because I know technically
One
Florida
of
State.
them. They've got like 14.
right.
But this is in the series of state
No,
championship games.
right.
All right,
She
that's
was
our
unconquered.
Super Sofa Game of the Week, brought to you by TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton. Store the size of 2 football fields, largest selection of furniture in Alabama. They buy in bulk, so you get the best prices. TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton. A couple of quick uniform questions. FIU, Vice U jerseys. They did this last year. This year, kind of going with a little bit more of a lighter look. Are we in or out on the Vice U uniforms from FIU this year?
I think they look pretty sweet.
I'm thinking they're pretty sweet. I liked them last year. Didn't you do the game where they
I
called
did.
them?
You bet he
Yeah,
did.
I had the Vice U game.
And you
last
loved
year.
it. You loved UTEP in the game, or FIU. You loved somebody.
I
And
don't.
Sure enough,
I don't feel like I picked teams before games that I called, but sure.
no. Hammer time.
Yeah, staying away from
I think-
that.
I think this. I think when you look at these FIU teams, for whatever reason, FIU has been a really fun. I just enjoy watching them play. I just think they have a lot of really good athletes. So I can get on board with FIU always, especially in their Miami Vice unis.
All right. Are we okay with because this was an absolute home run last year. Are we okay with Western Kentucky's big red, big eyes side of helmet uniforms that are coming, I believe, next week?
No.
I don't remember these.
I think it's weird to have the googly eyes on the helmet.
Exactly.
While I don't mind the color and everything looks cool, the eyes on the helmet just seems a bit too much for me.
It's not
Yeah.
good.
It's
not
not.
a good look. And they crushed this last year with the big reds in different football stances, like the quarterback, the offensive lineman.
You bought a sweatshirt of it.
I did.
Yeah.
And got the 3-point stance helmet sent to me. So I was all in on those. This is a bad look. G-Mac, you agree? This is no go?
Yeah, not really my thing. The big red thing is fun, but more importantly, has anyone been paying attention to what's going on with Western Kentucky since they've made change at quarterback, going away from your boy TJ Finley? Western Kentucky's sneaky hot right now. So just saying, don't mess around.
Well, they may be ruining with the uniforms.
Right.
Could be. Could
Caden
be. It happens.
Veldkamp.
Veldkamp.
He's got 8 touchdowns and 4 picks this year.
Yeah.
It's a double up.
70% on the year.
Hey.
He was only
Hey,
27
they gave
to
up-
30 for 398 and 5 touchdowns against Middle Tennessee. Somebody missed about it on that one.
Hey, don't be a hater all your life.
I'm not hating. No, I'm just saying that was a
Also
great
had a lead
performance. We
against
missed it.
Boston College. They just couldn't hang on to it.
They just ran out of time. That's all it was.
That's
That's all it
it.
was. I mean, he
They
threw
played
for
9 more
230.
times. Western Kentucky wins 8 of those.
He threw for 230 against Boston College. I mean, that's not terrible.
Threw 2 picks too.
Yeah, but that happens. Look at Peyton Thorne.
They're
It
on the
happens.
come though. Here they
not a
come.
big
Watch
deal.
out for Western. They're coming. All
Haters.
right. VMI at Sanford tomorrow, 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, Siebert Stadium. Damien, you'll be on the call for that one. I don't think VMI is having a great year.
They're not. They're 0-5,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
hasn't necessarily been pretty. But again, it's the SoCon, man. You can't take a week off in the SoCon, and I think for Sanford having the game postponed last week due to the hurricane there,
That works against you sometimes when it's not
Exactly.
your normal routine. You're not expecting it, but you should be better well rested. That should be good.
right.
Florida A&M is at Alabama State, 2 o'clock on ESPN Plus tomorrow. Alabama A&M is at Jackson State, 4 o'clock on ESPN Plus. So We'll be back Monday to recap all of it, 7 to 10 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5. You missed any Max Ball today? Go check it out, jocksfm.com or on the app. All the podcasts from segments, interviews there. Stanford Steve with us today. Nick De La Torre talking about just a weird 2 weeks for Florida that could end up being an even weirder Saturday night in the Swamp where they are underdogs to UCF. It is real. It's a real thing.
Backwards.
You just said. More college football discussions, getting you set for the weekend. Coming up next with 3-Man Front. Just keep it locked all day right here and all weekend on Jocks 94.5.